It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott is here. Richard Campbell's joining us from Perth, where it is the middle of the night. But Richard somehow has kept his energy up. There is stuff to talk about, including an interesting change in the licensing for Windows 11. We've got some dev builds to talk about, OneDrive problems on Paul's behalf. In fact, Paul's going to give you a little rant on why things have gotten too complicated. He wants them to go back to dumb. All that and more coming up next, including a great brown liquor. Windows Weekly is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 849, recorded Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. Back to dumb. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Duo. Protect against breaches with a leading access management suite, providing strong multi-layered defenses to only allow legitimate users in. For any organization concerned about being breached and in need of a solution fast, Duo quickly enables strong security and improves user productivity. Visit cs.co/twit today for a free trial. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we get together with two fabulous Windows commentators to get their latest opinions on Microsoft. We have, on your right, from Perth, Australia, Mr. Richard Campbell of runesradio.com. Hello, Richard.
Hello. We're starting to have real fun with this. So where in the world is Richard thing now?
Yeah.
I feel like...
So you are unusually subdued for you.
No.
I feel like
2 o'clock in the morning.
Given the word...
Okay.
Oh, is it really? Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Given the wood paneling, I feel like you're really calling in from the 70s, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I could open the curtains behind me, but the glass reflects pretty harshly.
No.
But the
Don't.
night lights of Perth are beautiful.
Oh, I bet they are. They're on the edge of the world. Also, on your left,
Certainly the edge of the internet.
Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com.
We're in a different kind of terminus. It's called Makunji.
Did you move? It looks like the same molding behind you as before.
It will be mid-November.
Why are you moving?
Because I hate myself.
No kidding.
Because, we had a family thing come up where, it's kind of a long story, but basically, she's not my mother, but my stepmother sort of.
Needed to stay with you?
Medical issues. No, but she can't stay in her condo, so we can stay in there. It will cost the same.
Oh, you're taking over her condo. Oh, that's cool.
Well, just short term,
You just love packing boxes, don't you, Paulie?
Getting good at it,
Certainly a lot of practice, yeah.
Every time I see your Insta, I go, oh, poor Paul.
Yeah, I do too. I hate myself. It's terrible.
Poor Paul and
It's the right thing to. It's the right thing to do. We're just.
Yeah. Good. I just put, as you may know, my mom in assisted living. And
I wasn't sure about that. Okay, I didn't know that, but
that's why I was out there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, I'm going back in a week from Monday, but I'm going to do the show from Mom's basement again, because as all podcasters, we should
be
Wayne's
World.
Yeah,
At some point you have to, right? It's kind of the rules.
Yeah,
sure.
And
just fulfilling the belief of everyone who thinks we're nerds.
Well, she kept her house. Because I told her, I said, Mom, if you hate this, you could go home. We just have to get you a nurse to come in and check you. But she's loving it. She likes three squares a day. Apparently, she's the hit of the assisted living facility.
Of course she is.
Because she's an entertainer. I kind of realize now where I got it from. She likes to, da-da-da-da-da.
And this is in Providence, right?
Yeah.
Providence area.
Yeah. So I'll be going back to Providence again, probably.
That's a great spot, too.
It's very nice. I grew up there, so it's familiar.
Yeah.
Although last time
has changed a lot, by the way.
Oh,
right?
it's gentrified big time.
We think about Providence like I could picture.
Oh, it's a wonderful city. It's got Brown University there.
City. Yeah,
Rhode Island School of Design. It's close, easy to get to Boston. It's actually a cute little city.
Yeah, it's a nice little place.
RISD's
Great
there as well.
RISD, yeah.
Yeah.
My sister works at RISD, so it's a
RISD was one of the colleges I got accepted at.
Really? Oh, you really were a graphic artist. I thought you were just making that up.
No, I went to art school and everything.
Yeah, RISD's a great school. Very
How'd
expensive.
that career work out for you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing computers now, Richard, and
And he likes Microsoft Paint, which is,
yeah, I do like
there you go.
Microsoft Paint.
Just explains
It's a
everything.
graphic tool.
So, Mr. Pauly, I know you want to talk about Windows 11. I know you're thrilled to talk about Windows 11. I know you're dying to talk about
I
Windows 11.
appreciate you bringing yourself down to my level to introduce the topic.
Can I just ask you if you ordered a Pixel 8?
I did.
Good.
Yep.
So did
Pixel
I.
8 Pro. Yep.
I don't want to. I feel like Google has lost the thread. I'm still a little mad at them because I bought the Pixel tablet, which is junk. But
Well, it's not. It's I appreciate them trying to do something different. I think it should have been a 16 by 10 device, stand optional, right? I feel like Android and tablets getting there. So that's something I would consider in the future over the iPad I currently use, but it's just not there yet. But
I don't know.
what do you mean by?
The iPad's the only tablet worth using.
Yep.
And I'm not an Apple fan.
Right. So, exactly. But what about the Pixel phone, Slayo? You don't. What's your worry there, or is he gone?
I don't know.
think
No, I'm not gone. I got up and left. I started the show, and I'll be back.
He's like, here's
hour
a
and a
topic,
half.
discuss.
No, I wasn't going to order it, to be honest with you, because it really doesn't look like it's a big improvement over the 7, which I have right here. But
I was always going to order it.
I'm a Google Fi user, so I need a Fi phone.
Yeah.
And I've been using the Samsung Flip 5, and honestly, I don't like how the screen feels. It's plasticky. And I think for my Fi phone, I should probably be using a Pixel. Plus, what's really intriguing to me, and I think this is actually a topic for conversation for this show as well as all the others, is they have announced that they're going to start integrating their large language model, Bard, into Google Assistant.
So here's the thing. This is a couple of things with the new Pixels. I would say the problem with the 6 and the 7 is the Tensor 1 and 2 were kind of garbagey from a raw performance perspective, but they also caused overheating. Yep. Right. So overheating problems, slow charging, and bad battery life. Right now, supposedly each of those things has been fixed. We'll have to see. We'll see. Or at least
so 8's the magic version.
Well, we'll see.
It's fair to give them a shot, right? To say, okay, maybe it is better.
23 watt charging versus 27 now. We'll see. And the other thing is Pixel is the only mainstream camera to have high resolution sensors in all 3 of the lenses. Right? Yeah. So it's 50, 48, 48. And, the new iPhones are at 48, 12, 12.
Right.
It's like,
no, that's right.
So that's interesting right there. And then all the AI stuff they're doing, not just photography, but just kind of across the board, which was the point of Tensor, might be coming together in this moment that, God bless them, Microsoft orchestrated. And here it comes, so we will see. I was always going to get this because for me, the battery life charging, the curved screen on the 7 just were a little much, and it fixes those problems. So we'll see, or it should. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's fair.
I presume you have the new iOS device as well.
Oh, yes, I do. Again, another expense I can ill afford, but must for my sins do. And this is, actually, I've been very happy with this.
One of my earliest memories of something you said to me on this podcast, which it dates back literally 15 years, was I was decrying the need to buy these devices, right? And you just described it as the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I now reply to my wife every time she says, can you explain to me why we spent another $1,100 on a device you barely use? And I said, well, honey, it is the cost of doing business.
It's funny. It's ironic because that line comes from my wife, who forces me to buy these things as the cost of doing business. And since she is the...
So this is just like the ham story from last week. It's like we don't even remember anymore why we're doing it. We
just keep doing it.
I keep cutting the end off my phone, but nobody does why.
It doesn't fit in the case. Exactly.
So thanks, by the way, to Micah for doing the show last week. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I won't miss any more for a while. And thanks to Jason Howell for getting up Pacific time, 7 a.m., We broadcast the Google stream with his commentary. Oh, God.
You can't stop
It's insanity.
So,
this is like the end of Planet of the Apes in here now.
This is the national, if you're hearing this, this is just a test.
That one came up in Spanish for some reason. Okay.
Yours is in Spanish?
One of them was.
This is
One
a
of the
test
three.
of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. The purpose is to maintain and improve alert warning capabilities at federal, state, and local, and tribal and territorial levels, and to evaluate the nation's public alert and warning capabilities. No action is required by the public. Everyone, please stay calm. Did y'all get it? Everybody in the Discord, y'all get it? It was loud.
It was pretty loud.
We have to edit, I believe. So we had a debate last night in the editorial meeting. Can we rebroadcast? Like, what's going to happen?
Right.
And I said, well, when we're live, it's going to go off. I don't know what else we're going to do.
Sure. It's like taking a photo of a dollar bill. Technically, not legal. But
what I'm pretty sure we shouldn't do, and we will, for those of you who are listening to the recording, kind of, you'll hear a dead air in that portion because I don't think we should broadcast it again.
The sound of my soul.
Dead air.
Dead air.
Anyway.
Does it feel flat in here?
Anyway, good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
In the words of Tim Cook. Woo.
Right.
Exactly. And for those of you not in the U.S. who heard nothing, this was only a test.
This is what it's like to live here, sort of.
Actually, this has been other countries have had this for a long time.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say, except with really bad, healthcare. But yeah, fair enough.
Right. Yeah. And an interesting political situation. But I guess the UK, our UK listeners are used to that. Anyway, there it is. It worked. Well, it didn't go off on this. Now, this phone, the Pixel I was talking about earlier, doesn't have a SIM in it. But it is on the Wi-Fi.
It's eSIM'd, right?
No, it's not even eSIM'd. It's just
interesting. So you got it.
Because I took the SIM out of it and put it in my
actually.
Flip.
So same as mine. Actually, now that you mention it.
You had to be on a cell network.
Yeah,
I guess
it's a cell transmission.
My watch went off too, by the way.
So I do have an eSIM in it, but it's not activated. But it still went off.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So my watch.
Oddly enough, my Canadian phone did not go off in Australia. So
right.
Hey guys, can you give me the over the shoulder shot? So it says this is a test on my watch. So my watch made a lot of noise too, a racket. But my watch has a SIM.
Triumph.
So anyway,
actually, this one doesn't have a SIM either.
Huh.
I got it on two phones with no SIMs.
People are saying, does your phone not have a switch to turn that off? There is, of course, on all phones. You can turn off the Amber Alerts. You can turn off the presidential alerts. This was an alert you could not turn off. You could have all of those switches off. It would have gone off. So just everybody...
reminding your government does control your phone.
Yeah, just to prove it. That's right.
Yeah, just being sure.
Conspiracy theories.
Extension of the EULA that nobody reads.
Begin.
Is it a conspiracy if it's true?
Sure, right? Sure. Anyway.
Right. It's a true-spiracy.
Yeah, there you go. The conspiracy.
Patrick Delahany said that his son, Caden, who is like 5 or 6, has his mother's old phone. It has a SIM, but no service, still went off.
Yeah. Right. Same here.
There you go.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new world order,
just a
ladies and
recognition
gentlemen.
that if you have a SIM in a phone, it's nenegotiated with a network.
The good news is,
interesting.
If you take your SIM out of your phone, though, Google can't track you, so that works at least.
Just the government.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's something. I don't know.
Enough distraction. I think we really do have to talk about Windows 11. I'm sorry.
That's such a bad version of Windows. Not anymore, anyway.
So no more free upgrades for 7 and 8. They've said this before, though, right?
I'm sorry. Wait, so 7. I thought you were. I was like, Pixel. What are you talking about?
You really don't want to talk about this, do you?
Let me. No, I really do. I never.
Okay.
You said that. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I want to talk about it. So
you went to all the trouble of writing it.
January 2015. Microsoft announced that Windows 10 would be a free upgrade for users on Windows 7 and 8, right? And also Windows Phone, whatever. We're not going to talk about that. So, and it was going to last for a year. That was the plan. Now, this is like a lot of things in the Microsoft space where we sort of feel like they probably did this for legal reasons and they don't really care and yada, yada, yada.
This is back when Windows 10 was the last version of Windows.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So what is it now? 8 years later and 8.5 years later, and Windows 11 has occurred. The free upgrade is extended to Windows 11 because, spoiler alert, Windows 11 is Windows 10. And one of the little side effects, and one of the things that I've been keeping track of ever since, is that if you had a retail product key for Windows 7 or 8, I have an incredible cache of product keys from Microsoft that came via MSDN back in the way when that was a subscription. From TechNet back in the day when that was a subscription. And those things kind of went out right as Windows 10 was happening. So I have this huge catalog of Windows 7 and 8 keys I can use to activate virtual machines for testing purpose, whatever. It's really nice. And those are the same as retail product keys. So Microsoft announced this past week that they are in fact ending this free upgrade, which it sort of makes sense, right? It was supposed to end on July 29th, 2016, right? Long time ago. They let it go, extended it to Windows 11, like I said.
Changed leadership in Windows a few times along the way.
Yes, exactly right.
But they never said it's still on, right? They never admitted that they didn't shut it down.
They sort of did when 11 came out. They never really, the thing is, they never really talked about the product keys ever again. But when Windows 11 came out, they said, just like Windows 10, it's a free upgrade, right? Because they want to get everyone on the latest version. Of course, these systems are out of support now, right? So, I mean, who's got a computer that came with 7 or 8 or was upgraded to 7 or 8 and is now like, I think I'm going to upgrade to 11, And of course, people are raising their hands as I say that, but seriously.
But you're talking about Gen 5, 6, 7 machines, right? Like, pretty old
and
machines.
older. That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised, honestly, that they even announced it. But I think the thing I'll say literally the thing I will say to that is going to be the next thing that comes out of my mouth is that Microsoft has gotten a little more serious about the hardware requirements with Windows 11, and we can obviously debate the nonsense that goes on around that. But the reality is, with AI is coming, Windows 12 is probably coming. I think they're going to be a little, more stickly about this stuff. So, which is not a word. So we'll see. Anyway, they announced it. They said we're not going to support the free upgrades anymore. Of course, I read that and I think, wait a minute. I get all these product keys. I use this a lot. And in my job, for writing books, testing software, whatever it is, I rely on this. It's actually really nice to have these product keys that work and have an activated version of Windows. So I tested it. And, anyway, I can verify that it worked as of today, as of the recording of this podcast. If you're running Windows 11 stable, the mainstream out there supported version, it works fine. I tested it on a few insider builds. It works in the release preview. It works in 23H2, which is through the release preview. Part of that CFR nonsense of our world today is that you could be on the release preview and have 22H2 or 23H2. Please don't make me go down that rabbit hole, but you can, and I have both, and it works fine on both. And it does. The only one it doesn't work on is Canary, and Canary is the furthest out one, right? So we don't know when this will take effect in the public. It could actually happen at any time, right? The way that things go these days.
But you're presuming that Canary represents a lineage, right? That what comes into Canary will show up on the other build. We also know that Microsoft doesn't care and that they could just pop this in a stable at any time. So there is no guarantee that this will last. So it's happening. It is absolutely happening. I've never seen the error messages I saw in Canary ever using keys either in setup or once you boot into the desktop. So it is happening. So yeah, I guess what I can confirm at least is that someday in the future, could be later today, could be next year, you will no longer be able to use Windows 7 or 8 product keys to upgrade to Windows 10 for free. So that is going away. And I can't, other than the convenience for me personally, there's nothing to complain about here, right? They kept this thing going for way longer than they said they were going to. Way longer. So not a big deal, but a reality we need. I would debate whether I can find a Windows 8 key.
Well, let me know. I've got about 50 of them. So if you need one, this is the time to ask. So,
I think you just ask for them from ChatGPT. They're not that hard to come by.
Yeah, but you have to tell her that your grandma used to tell you.
Yes, my grandma used to
bedtime
tell
stories.
me a bedtime story about Windows keys. Yes.
Do it as you say. Draw me a photorealistic image of a unicorn flying in space with a Windows 11 product key on its flank.
Perfect. Good thinking. There's a prompt.
That's what dall-e 3 is for.
Mm-hmm.
Those keys, by the way, were real, but they were demo keys. They weren't going to do what you wanted them to do, which is give you a free copy of Windows, right? I think
It was
I
also
remember
for
that
an
story.
ancient version of Windows. It was also, I think it was for Windows 95.
Oh,
too,
okay. Was it really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I think
Oh,
so.
that's cute. Okay.
Yeah, nothing to worry about. But these things are always amusing to people.
I mean,
it's
talk
like,
about
hey, this new.
hallucination.
Yeah, you're right. It's like putting Doom on an alarm clock. It's like, guess what Doom runs on next? It's like at this point, we're like, it runs on everything. No one
Everything.
cares.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
I don't want to play it on an alarm clock, but thank you.
If it doesn't run on it, it's not a thing. So let's just move on. Okay, so
that's interesting. I mean, I never understood why they said they were going to kill it and didn't kill it. So, I mean, I don't even.
Well, this is a conversation we had over many years with Mary Jo, and the two of us both kind of agreed that, for legal reasons, because you don't want to support it, right? This is the whole point of a EULA, right? Remember, we've had EULAs in the Microsoft space forever, right? Or something.
Arguably, Bill Gates invented the EULA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, because people were stealing his basic.
You're stealing my paper tapes. Stop it.
Whatever that California Computer Club was called.
Yeah.
And but this came to the public forefront, I would say, with iTunes, right? All of a sudden there were news stories in mainstream press that were like, does anyone even read these things? Do you even know what you just gave away? Like you don't own anything, And now we're so immune to it. Who cares? People don't even care about privacy anymore.
No, we don't care.
Why would they care about this?
We don't care about government. We don't care about privacy. We don't care. We don't care.
But so EULAs were things written by lawyers, and I think the people at the companies don't care what they say either. And I think that basically it's just there to protect the company in the event that some person, or more likely organization, comes and says, well, guess what, guys, you have to support this because yada, yada, yada. So
the point is, this time they mean it.
Well, the point is this time that they are doing it, I guess.
Okay.
Right?
Maybe. They at least test the software for it. Doesn't mean they mean it.
We'll see. Yeah.
It's in the canary bill.
Here's a question from Jarno G in our Discord that I think is legit. Do the keys still work if you already upgraded them for a previous installation? Can you use them for a reinstall? In other words, I had a Windows 7 key. I upgraded to Windows 10. Now I'm on Windows 10.
Right.
Can I reuse that key?
Yeah, once Windows is activated, yes, it's because you're not really dealing with a key anymore.
Now it's an entitlement. It's
you
not
have a different kind of license.
Yeah.
It's there you go. That's the right word, Leo. Look at you.
That's
exactly right.
In the dictionary, right?
It is. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
And they do that based on the hardware. That's right. That's the key, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. That's right. A matrix of hardware.
Yeah.
They don't really talk about this anymore. When activation first appeared, and then for probably the next version or two, they would talk about it, and they would explain how they were. One of the problems, like Vista came out with what was it? Windows XP came out with activation. So someone would replace a hard drive, and then they couldn't activate it anymore. So Microsoft would adjust this over time to, certain things would weigh more. The amount of time you had certain devices would weigh more, and it got to the point where you could pretty much replace the motherboard and be okay. In most cases, and then of course if you call them, they're not gonna.
Yeah, they were always very good. If you called them, they would always say, "Okay, fine." Well,
yeah, no. So if you have an existing device that you upgraded, however you did it, you don't have to worry.
Okay,
as long as it meets the hardware, the hardware requirements for the operating system you're running, right?
Is this an indication that maybe Microsoft doesn't care about? I mean, like everybody that they wanted to upgraded, and so now we're good. Is that kind of the? Like, we don't need to give you free Windows 11. I can only guess,
but I think it is. I think, look, when they did Windows 11 and they had this what I would call an arbitrary set of hardware requirements, you had this glimpse of a future that I think we all agree is coming, where they're going to be just stricter about this kind of stuff. And they have to almost be semi-artificial about it every time, because the reality is Windows runs fine on all kinds of hardware. And those people like Richard's,
we're saying that they don't want to support it, and they'd rather upgrade you for free than pay the cost of maintaining a support team for the older product.
But at some point,
when
that stops, and they say, "Okay, now you got to pay if you want to."
Well, We talked about this a little bit last week, I think, but Terry Myerson said, I don't think he came up with it personally, but he was the one who first communicated this notion of supported for the lifetime of the device. And for 10 years or 8 years, we were like, what does that even mean? Got some dark signals, what it might mean. And honestly, I think Windows 11 kind of closed the loop on that. Windows 11, Microsoft was basically saying lifetime of the device is what we say it is. And that could change at any time for any device. They talk a lot about the microprocessor, of course, but it's not just that, right? It's the TPM chip. And in the future, I think it's going to be MPU too. So
and
I
they
think
are going to need
just them setting
those are
the stage for this future they want.
They're going to want, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if now you don't need it.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to change dark mode by typing unless you have an NPU. Come on. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see. Unfortunately, with Windows and Microsoft, I have to say we'll see a lot because you think things are going to happen, like at that Microsoft event a couple of weeks ago, and then nothing happens, and then you're like, I guess we're still going to see. I thought we were going to see last week.
I mean, I always read these things as we're putting this out there to see how the response is, but in the end, the way we stay in front of the parade is by figuring out which way the parade is going. So, if it doesn't stick, if people aren't responsive to it, they're going to change their minds again.
Microsoft does have a rich history of changing its mind when it gets enough negative feedback. It really does. There are certain things it will not step back from. Obviously, it didn't do that for activation. That was a different era. We'll see. We will see.
But they also created manual activations. You could call in and do them. I mean, there's an argument with Windows 12 requiring some kind of NPU. And I wonder if they won't take a flyer on that just to say, hey, you have to buy new hardware if you want to.
I blurted that out in January. I made it up as I said it. I don't know. We don't know. Microsoft's not going to talk about this, right? But someday Microsoft will talk about a future version of Windows, whether it's 11 or 12, that will have a different set of hardware requirements, right? That's not happening for 23H2. That itself should be suspicious to people, right? The way they're doing this enablement package. But I think we settled the debate on that last week, that they're doing it to force these features down everyone's throat, to make sure as many people get the CoPilot and other new features as possible, right? Outside of the feature update scheme. And then we'll see what happens in 24. I mean, and
to be clear, the thing that wags the dog here is not the consumer version of Windows. This is about Windows Enterprise. And if the big customers say, we're going to be doing this,
right?
Microsoft's going to go that way.
There's also the, this, I mean, better than I do. I mean, there is a kind of natural refresh cycle coming for a lot of enterprises in the next year or two. Just because of the age of
even on Run-As, I advocated, like, this is not the year for the hardware refresh. Buy the extended warranty. Your CFO is jumpy. You can help calm them down by just, delaying some purchases for a year or so. Right.
Yep. So I think next few years, and whether that's tied to, knowing enterprises, Windows 12 will come out and they'll stick with Windows 11 because it's a known quantity.
Oh, yeah. No, we'll wait for at least SP1. Let's not get crazy now. Paul. Like, certainly SP1.
Hey, you just said SP1. Who's the crazy one here? But yes, fair enough. So we'll see. I mean, I do think there's something going on. I mean, I always have. I mean, like I said, the first clue was
positioning for a hardware break, and whether or not they can pull it off, nobody actually knows, including Microsoft.
Wait a minute, you better positioning for a hardware break. What I don't.
Yeah.
Well, hardware requirements.
A new one, an additional one to the one we've already got.
Yeah, in other words, Windows 11.
They don't currently require an NPU, right? So you think that's what it is? Yeah.
And as it turns out, they don't really require TPM2, right? Like every time they tried to put a hardware break in front of us, we pretty well went, nah.
Right. But they're trying. They keep trying. So,
but at the same time, this happens naturally on the hardware refresh cycle, right? Like
that's what I mean. I think
a machine now without a TPM2.
Right. So tying it to a natural hardware refresh cycle actually makes some sense, right?
Right.
And we also speculate about whether Microsoft will extend support for Windows 10. One of the reasons they would do that is because there will be companies in this span of time doing a refresh where the ones that are, further out will want to stick with what they have for a little bit longer, and to ensure that they then go to the MPU version of hardware. Microsoft will probably extend the support of Windows 10. That's one of the things they could do, right? And I could see that happening too.
No, I think 10 will last longer than anybody wants it to.
There is also
like
the
a bad
issue
case
that
of the clap.
Intel's new quote NPU based processors are desktop only, right? They're not going to be in the laptop.
Actually, so Leo, you missed this. This was on me. I apologize. So historically, Intel releases the desktop version of their core chipsets in the fall.
Yeah.
This is the first time ever that they are launching the laptop chipset first. So the Meteor Lake that they announced was for laptop CPUs, right? Now they have different names now. It's like Core, Ultra, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this is the first time they've done that. So actually, the chipsets we're getting now are for laptops or for mobile computers.
Okay.
What they said was, and this is what you heard, was we're not sure if we are going to do this on the desktop side. So here's the rationale there. With the current 13th gen desktop chips, Intel actually offers an add-on NPU you can put on a motherboard separate from the SoC.
Mm-hmm.
So for the desktop chips, bigger die, whatever it might be, I think they're just thinking we don't want to do that. We'll do it separately, almost like you would do obviously GPU comes on a data card and whatever, but this will be like adding a math coprocessor to a 386SX or whatever.
Well, that went, and you remember how well that went. So wait a minute. But the reason I bring that up is that Microsoft's going to have a hard time making a hardware requirement if different Meteor Lake chips have different processes.
So what percentage of PC sales are desktop these days, right? It's actually kind of a small percentage.
Mike, is Microsoft going to say you have to have a laptop? That would be weird.
No. One would argue that with a desktop machine comes a high-end GPU anyway.
Yeah, and that might satisfy some of that.
That might satisfy. That might be NPU in effect.
That's your NPU processor.
Yeah. We were talking about enterprise driving the boat, so to speak. I mean, what percentage of enterprise PCs being deployed to users this year and beyond are desktop? It's probably very small.
It's getting smaller. Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean we don't need them on desktop, but I think the plug-in NPU is, and plus that's something, and that's something that PC makers can do. It's a value add; they can charge for it. It's
you can have a standalone NPU.
Yeah, and they already have it. The 13th gen desktop chips are for this.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you missed this too, Leo. But one of the unique, well, maybe you didn't, but one of the unique things
about
a
whole lot happens. I tell you what.
Everything.
Microsoft announced at that event a Surface Studio, a Laptop Studio 2, which has a 13th gen H series processor, which is mobile, and is, to my knowledge, the only such computer to offer a plug-in NPU. Right, so Microsoft is providing an NPU on that motherboard. It's a separate part, right? So it's probably a custom version or the version that Intel already offers on the desktop side. And I'm sure the battery life is fantastic, but whatever. It's unique in the space because it does have an NPU, but it's an add-in NPU. So it exists.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we're early in the scale. Remember, what was it? Not OpenGL. Well, I guess it was OpenGL. There was a GL something. There was a graphics card that came out that John Carmack supported in Quake that did, hardware accelerated graphics, and everyone bought it. Right, to run GL Quake. Most people didn't have a hardware accelerated anything in their computers. Today it's very common, right? Even in integrated chipsets, we have that. So this is maybe, this is the first crawl days of AI. We'll get to walk and run later, but
it's inevitable to end up on the die. I mean, certainly Apple set the standard with the M1 and the M2.
That's right.
And
they have NPUs.
Intel's dancing with this just because it's going to affect the price point.
Right. That's right. Yeah, but see, well, I wonder, Apple still doesn't support external GPUs, and I think they've said they will never do so, or at least they have no plans to do so. It would be interesting in the PC space if we had the equivalent of Intel integrated graphics, but for NPU, and then also the ability to add on a card.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Better. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could see it, or a combination NPU.
The same
GPU.
way we did CUDA cards back in the day. If you needed a lot of GPU compute, you could have a dedicated card for it that didn't necessarily have an interface out to DisplayPort or HDMI. It had GPU processing.
Okay.
And then the audio quit again.
We do that. Microsoft is moving toward a new set of standards for hardware requirements. And that's going to be an interesting day because, you got to market it like a positive pro for everybody. But what we're all going to hear
I think they're hoping that the CoPilot product is compelling enough that you want it badly enough that buying new hardware for it's no big deal.
Right. And I can tell you, image background removal in Paint's going to do it. So I think we're in good shape.
That's the one. That's the one.
I know. It's it. Damn. Nice.
Okay. Let's
All
move
right.
along. That was the first item, the first bullet point of many. And we wanted this show before poor Richard sees the sun come up.
I know.
So,
Oh my God.
What's next?
I've already had a good sleep. You guys got to know this.
You took a nap
early.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So this is in the
I
morning.
had a
concerns.
sleep. Yeah, no, I'm
I
organized.
have concerns about his constitution here, but good. Okay.
Okay.
So we have had 2 dev channel builds since we last spoke on the last show. Neither of them are substantive in any major way. The one that just occurred today, literally right as we were starting the show, added CoPilot to the AltTab hotkey, which the feature, right? Which I assume means that you can AltTab to CoPilot, even if it's not. Oh, actually, it must mean when it's running, because one of the goofy things
it is
about
always
CoPilot,
running, right? I mean, isn't that really what it says?
Right. I was going to say
it's there.
It's always there. Like, it's sopping up your RAM, whether you want it to or not. Not clear
There was
yet
various
if this can be
STDs you could have
disabled.
referenced there, but okay.
Right. And as Laurent on my site pointed out, Microsoft at some point in Windows 10 added the ability to Alt-Tab to Edge tabs. CoPilot is an instance of Edge, and I bet it was super easy to work it into that little scheme, right?
It may have already been happening, and somebody said it's a feature.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's true too. Actually, that actually makes even more sense.
It seems likely.
Okay. So I avoided last week going on an extended rant about 22H2 plus the fall update versus 23H2 and all that. So now I'm going to go into that rant. No, I'm kidding. But I will say since then, what I've experienced is what I feared I would experience, which is that just in trying to understand 23H2, right? And what the schedule is and all that kind of stuff. If you're on Windows 11 22H2 today, you can grab that preview update that we talked about last week. It's in Windows Update and get it. Anyone can get it. What you get on the other end of that is kind of fielder's choice at this point. It depends. Some of the features that are in that fall update /23H2 are CFRs, right? These controlled feature release features. Mm-hmm. And that means that Microsoft is literally rolling them out randomly.
Yeah. Or at least appears to be.
Yes, to us it appears right, exactly. Like a random playlist in iTunes. It's not actually random, but it's random enough because
I'm also a big believer in this, like an insiders list, and those folks always get the CFRs, including something you don't get any other way unless you're on that special list.
Yep, I think you're right, because in the beta channel, as we often say, they are in fact fielding 2 builds every time they release something, and one of them has features and one doesn't. So they clearly have that capability. There's obviously a switch. There are third-party tools like ViveTool that can enable features if you know the right codes. I haven't screwed around with that since this fall update came out. Actually, I should probably look into that. But between the stable version of Windows 11, which is right now is on 22H2, obviously, and is adding and has added in preview that fall update and all those features, and then version 23H2, which is available through the release preview, but not always, by the way. I'm coming to an understanding of like how this works, and it works really poorly, unfortunately. You sometimes will have CoPilot, sometimes you'll have the new teams, sometimes you'll have both, sometimes you'll have neither. There's also a new version of Edge coming down the pike, by the way. Remember the CoPilot icon that was in Edge in that show has never appeared yet. It's not in Canary, it's not in Dev, it's not in beta. So all these things are going to kind of coalesce into what will be 23H2 whenever that's released, right? November, December, most likely. But if you want to get 23H2, which is honestly, today is not a big deal because you can get most of it in stable. Just join the release preview channel and then keep checking for updates, because you probably aren't going to get everything right away. I did a system reset last night on one PC because I've been doing this for a week and I'm like, what's taking so long? And I finally got a working computer on 23H2 that has everything.
So all you got to do is
H2
routinely wipe your machine and update, and maybe you'll get it.
Yep. You can just listen to what I say, because honestly, my life is terrible and you don't want to do this to yourself.
Well, I would also argue like only someone with multiple machines who's also making a living documenting the details would even notice.
That or an insane person. Yep.
Well,
and
tell me the difference.
And or both.
Yep. That's all that.
It's a subtle distinction.
Yeah.
So there's that. Couple of things, because Microsoft in its infinite wisdom is also rolling out features just kind of randomly, like outside of these channels, right? The big story on that last year was OneDrive. The big one this year is Windows Backup. This new kind of, I don't want to call it a modern app. It's barely an app, but it's replaces the old Windows Backup, which was that system backup and restore utility from yesteryear, which, by the way, is still in there, which is kind of fun too. If you want to get it, it's still there. So Windows Backup and OneDrive are things we need to talk about, unfortunately. So Windows Backup is not new, and it doesn't do anything new for the most part, right? The point of it is, actually, there's 2 points. One, it tells you what the system is backing up, syncing really, right? It's not really backing up anything, but syncing to your Microsoft account. This stuff was already syncing to your Microsoft account. So if you sign in with a Microsoft account, which almost everyone does these days as individuals, because Microsoft makes it hard to impossible to do otherwise, depending.
Anything else. It has nothing to do with what you want.
So when Windows 11 first came, one of the little insidious things that they did was they required Windows 11 home users to sign in with an MSA. They don't even give them the option and setup to not do so. In 22H2, they did the same thing to pro users, right? It became mandatory, essentially. There are workarounds, but as far as the UI goes and normal people, you're signing in with an MSA. There are a lot of reasons Microsoft does this, and I know there are a lot of reasons people hate this, but when you sign into an MSA, you get a bunch of different things, but among them are this settings sync stuff, which factors into the Windows Backup, the OneDrive folder backup, which factors into Windows Backup and also OneDrive, and other things, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff.
It also means
automatic
have
password
to connect your computer
authentication
to the internet, right? Like I've certainly talked to folks where being connected
yes, it does.
is a big deal.
That's right. You can't just unplug it, right? It is a big deal. Yeah.
Well, the good thing is you have to connect it to do that. Once you've done it, you can disconnect for a while.
Yeah. Yep. But you have to do that. You have to make that connection the first time. I mean, most people are just going to leave it connected. This is aimed at normal people, right? The idea is you just
most people want to be on the
internet about this stuff. Yeah. So in Windows 11 Home, you sign into your MSA and setup, and then it says, hey, congratulations, you're using Windows 11 Home. Your folders are being backed up to OneDrive. You don't even have an option to turn it off. The story with Pro was that if you sign in with Pro with an MSA, you have the option to turn it off and set up. I can tell you, having installed Windows approximately, 150 times probably since last year, that that's a roll of the dice. I would say more often than not, especially recently, Microsoft treats Pro like home in that regard. You actually don't get the choice. And so if you don't want that, I'm telling you, one of the first things you got to do when you hit the desktop is open settings in OneDrive and look at folder backup and just make sure it's doing what you want, because that to me is one of the more insidious things that Windows does. And it's about to get worse. And we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, Windows Backup. So what is this thing? Well, it's really a front end to tell you what you can back up, or what is syncing already with your Microsoft account. There's almost nothing you can configure in this app. The one exception is it actually does give you a UI to turn on folder sync, right, in OneDrive, but only for 3 of the 5 folders, because Microsoft. The other stuff is all stuff that was already happening in the background. The big thing that's changed actually is not new to today. It's over 2 years ago. Microsoft added the ability to restore from a backup that none of us knew we were making. So you sign into a Microsoft account, and the very first thing it says is, hey, do you want to restore this from some computer? And it's super dumb. It's super dumb. And the reason I know it's dumb is because I have computers that are in the list of things I could restore from. And the one that's at the top is never that computer, even though, on that computer.
So it's not actually doing a device recognition and know which one to go, hey, this is the backup from this machine. You want it.
No, it's super dumb. So that capability has actually been around for over 2 years. I have backups dating back to August 2021. I don't actually remember when it started, but that's how old some of my backups are. And I have a lot of them. The other thing that Windows Backup does is it gives you a button called Backup, and Backup is a fun little button because it doesn't do anything. Nice. The only thing, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I can't actually say that. I'm sorry. If you made changes to your OneDrive folder sync, it will apply that. Then it will do that. Mm-hmm. Technically, it probably does give you an updated backup, but the truth is, you don't need it's doing this seamlessly in the background all the time. Like it's nothing. Like it's not like you remembered a Wi-Fi network password. And you're like, oh, backup. I gotta back it up. It's going to your Microsoft account. It's all fine. It doesn't do anything, but it gives you. I think it's for people, and I think it's going to become something. Because one of the other things that's coming in Windows 11 23H2 is this thing called Dev Home, which, as its name applies, is a feature for developers, right? But Dev Home has some interesting stuff in it. And one of those things is a machine configuration feature that, yes, is designed for developers that allows you to, as a person, as an individual, use a tool very much like that winstall.app utility I talked about a while back that creates for you a script of winget commands to install all the apps you want. It does the same thing. And in managed environments, they have tools. They have to use YAML, which is a XML-based text file format to create configuration files. Not XML-based, sorry, XML-like, sorry, to do the same thing at scale, right? And they also have the ability to, remotely install applications on your system. I think that Windows Backup is going to turn into a thing that bridges the gap between store apps and all apps, right? We'll call it.
I was thinking this is more like, right? In other words, something Apple Time Machine-ish, which would be helpful. I mean, the bottom line is, how many people have actually had their bacon saved by this backup tool? Like you've wrecked the machine somehow.
Oh, zero.
Like, oh no, what am I going to do?
Well, yeah. No, the reason it's zero is because this tool is not a tool. It's just a front end to other tools. So there are pieces of Time Machine in Windows. For example, we had file history still there, but OneDrive, if you're doing all your documents and files through OneDrive, also has a file history functionality. You can reach it from the Windows shell. So if you're using that part of it, you've got that functionality built in, right? It doesn't give you that, but it doesn't give you that thing we were talking about maybe a few weeks ago, one-click restore. In other words, you want to go back in time, not just the files, but your operating system and the apps. Or maybe you want the operating system to be new and the apps to be new, but you want your files to be, from a certain time, or the newest files or whatever it might be. I think that's what they're heading toward, because if you remember, Reset This PC used to be tools. It was called Reset This PC and Refresh This PC. Right. And then they put it all in Reset This PC. And one of the options was you can come back with your apps, asterisks, your files, and your settings. And the asterisk on the apps was only store apps, right? We can restore those. We can't restore web installed apps, but Winget gives you we're getting there. And I think this might be the coming front end to a full OS app and settings backup and restore, which is not system image backup and restore, but is kind of a modern, right?
No, it's a manifest-based restore.
Yes. And Richard, again, I have to say so many times because he's in the space and I'm not, but in the commercial space, in the enterprise space, Microsoft has also had this notion of like known good configurations and what do you call it for configuration for what do you call that when you have a configuration for something that you want it to be like the right configuration for your environment?
Desired state configuration.
I apologize. Yeah. Desired state. Thank you. Exactly. They have this for Winget app installs. So it's not just, it's a script. Again, there's no tools for it yet. It's all handwritten now, but they have the ability, IT pros and enterprises, to not just deploy apps to your system, but to deploy them with a specific configuration, which is getting us so close. And I think it's something that will come to consumers. So I think between Windows Backup and Dev Home, we see the beginnings.
Yeah. you don't want consumers writing YAML. Like, it just makes people sad.
No, of course, that exactly. But again, this is step one, right? That's how I'm making it up, but that's how I see this. So there's that. The other big thing is OneDrive, and this one's depressing to me because between all of my decluttering work recently and then just general writing, part of my scheme to create a time machine-like thing for Windows, that 3-step process for restoring OS apps and settings, OS apps and files, technically, involves using OneDrive exclusively, right? If you don't ever want to lose something and you're working in Windows, save everything to OneDrive, right? You can configure it however you want, but if you put something on your desktop and your desktop's not syncing to OneDrive and you reboot your computer, it doesn't come back and you can't get into that thing, it's kind of on you. I mean, we're at the point now where this is something that can work. And so after writing so much about this, I brought up that computer I talked about in 23H2. I reset it. It took a long time. Usually PC reset takes a very short time. This one took a long time. Came back. It's Pro. It asked me, do you want to sync your files to OneDrive? I said, no, I do not. And I went into the desktop and I did a couple of things, installed a couple of Windows updates. And this morning I went to do my WinGet based script where I bulk install all my apps. And that plastered a bunch of shortcuts on the desktop, which I promptly deleted. And then I saw a dialog box I did not want to see, which was, just to let you know, Paul, when you delete from OneDrive, it goes to a recycle bin in the cloud. And I said, you know what? I told
you not to use OneDrive. Dang it.
Yep. So I went into the settings and sure enough, it enabled it after the fact. And
well, because you've made a poor decision.
Damn us all. This is what 21st do. Okay.
That was your mistake. We would like to fix that for you.
This is a problem. This is a problem.
How many different MSA entities do you hang on to do all of this?
I use the same one for most of them. I actually have two main ones.
I wonder why it takes a while.
I've never had to take this long, honestly. I do this a lot. It was unusual. I expected to complete this process last night, and I didn't finish it until midway through the morning today. And this OneDrive thing freaked me out. Now, to be clear and to be fair, this is the only time this has happened, but this is also the only time I've had a full 23H2 install. And I am, given the fact that there were literally 3 versions of OneDrive floating out in the world right now that you could have on your computer right now, running Windows 11, I'm worried that this might be like the Windows 11 Pro thing during setup where it even asks. I'm worried that sometimes it will respect your choice and sometimes it will do what it does with browsers and not respect your choice. And that is a dangerous and scary new world. So something to just be on the lookout for. I'm definitely the canary in this little coal mine. But I have never seen that happen before and I am freaked by it. So there's that. Your
point being that 23H2 should consolidate this problem. Like, this should be them tightening up on there is a right way.
I'm not sure I have a point. I guess in the continuum of they have changed little things with each release of Windows 11, especially with regard to MSA and OneDrive, that we have a new version coming and we might be seeing another change. Right.
The fragmentation of OneDrive is interesting. It's concerning, but usually that leads to a narrowing that they come down to a specific version.
Yeah, it might lead to me using Google Drive, by the way, or Dropbox, because I cannot afford for OneDrive to be screwing with the stuff that's in OneDrive. And I listen, we all have our own way of doing things. I'm not suggesting that I do things the normal or right way, but I do things the way I do them. And I have top level folders in OneDrive that I use for very specific things. And when you sync a folder from your computer to OneDrive, it blasts a bunch of crap into those things that I do not want there. And that to me is scary and wrong. There's also apps that don't like anyone doing this. Anyone right now could open your open File Explorer and go to your Documents folder and look at the weird folders that are in there that apps have left, including apps like Microsoft Office. Adobe dumps crap in there. Obsidian Power Toys is a Microsoft product. Visual Studio, Microsoft product. Zoom has got stuff in there. My website.
I just like that. It just reminds me that every time you say the word folder, you're an old person, because the younger generation doesn't know anything about folders.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But that's fine. But you know what? Those folders contain files, and maybe you're one of those modern search kids, and that's all you care about. But you're going to search for some term. You're going to come up with files that don't make sense to you because they're in those folders. Right. I mean, this whole thing is there needs to be a separation of my personal data and the data that an app uses for their configuration, a configuration that will not sync between computers, even if it's in OneDrive. It doesn't work that way. What if,
and I'm presuming
my user account folder on this computer is Paul?
You see that stuff.
They're not hidden folders. They're right there. Like I said, anyone can open this. You can see them. Everyone can see them. Everyone do it right now. You'll see folders that you did not create and do not want. Everyone. It's on everyone's computers.
Can I ask you a question? Why do you guys even use Windows? I mean, really?
Yeah.
You don't seem very happy with
someone
it.
asked me this on Twitter.
It's our happy place.
This is an important question. If you hate Windows so much, Paul, why do you use Windows? Yeah. And I always give the same answer to this question, which is I love my son, but when he came home from school with a bad report card, I worked to fix it.
That's a good point.
I was mad at him. It didn't mean I didn't love him.
Okay.
If anything,
excellent.
My concern about this indicates how much I care.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding this, Windows is your son, and you love him.
Windows is my son.
And the report card is very bad.
And boy, is the report card. If an operating system
bad, lots of regressions.
If an operating system did that to me, it would be hard for me to forgive it.
Straight to the orphanage.
Yeah.
So you're touching on. So I wrote a big editorial about OneDrive today, and I said, ideally, this relationship would be symbiotic and positive. But eventually it becomes toxic. This is part of that certification stuff that Terry Doctorow talks about. And then one day you realize the pros have started to be outweighed by the cons. And that's the point where you have hard decisions to make, right? So I'm going to spend some time experimenting. I'm going to look around, and I don't mean like switching to the Mac. I don't mean that. But
don't get crazy.
But solving this OneDrive problem in particular, because, come on. Keyboard shortcuts, guys. I need to get work done, right? I don't want things getting in my way.
What you're dealing with here is this: every time Windows puts its priorities ahead of yours, it's concerning. And OneDrive being integrated into Windows, you're now being reminded, oh no, our priorities are more important than yours, and we're going to use OneDrive the way we want to use it.
And to
the
be
reason
fair,
you use a third-party storage product
100%.
is to disassociate those two things.
If
I'm paying for Dropbox, Dropbox
and
is
separate
mine.
those file systems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is not the only place
this goes back to one of the central debates.
It's everywhere. This is universal.
This is an ecosystem problem. This is in fact, I'm telling. This is my tip today. I'm literally going to go into this. So, a million years ago, and by which I mean like 3 years ago, somebody on Twitter or somewhere said something to me, and I can't find the original. It was so profound, and I thought it was so smart, and it was probably tied to Microsoft was on the 7th version of their music service or whatever the hell it was at the time. They went from MSN Music to Urge to Zune to Xbox to Groove or whatever it was. It was like, what are you doing to yourself? Why do you keep following along with this stupidity? Someone said to me something so smart, but it's a debate, which is this. The reason I don't use a Microsoft Music service or whatever the thing was at the time is because music is not important to Microsoft. That's why I use Spotify, because music is important to Spotify. Music is Spotify's only business. Now, that's not true anymore, right?
No.
So here's the thing. Do you go with a company like Dropbox because that's all they do? It's their whole business or the focus of their business. Or do you go to a company like Microsoft where it's the smallest freaking province in the corner of a giant grid of features that they have? And, where do you put your time, effort, and money, right? And it's honestly, it's not as clear cut as it sounds, but it's an important debate because sometimes those little services go away.
Well, this
right?
is
you don't want to put your service
the stereo
in
component model versus the all-in-one, right? Like long ago, we used to make fun of, look, you've got a vinyl player that's got a cassette tape in them. Now they're both bad. Where when I bought a dedicated cassette player and a dedicated LP player,
you have an iMac and the screen goes bad, and you're like, great, I've got this powerful computer inside of a screen I can't use anymore because the screen's bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a debate. It's something we all need to worry about. But I think in this, this is my tip. I'm ruining it. I'll get to it. But this is it's a big topic. This might be the biggest topic of our times.
I agree.
And I mean, in the personal technology sphere, in a world in which subscriptions are getting more and more expensive, in a world in which services are getting more hostile to users, we collectively need to make decisions for ourselves and maybe make a stand.
Yeah.
You know, I made the point earlier that Microsoft has shown itself to be very responsive to negative feedback. If OneDrive is being insuredified in the way that I believe it is, we as a community need to stand up and say no. You know, I very strongly feel that.
But what do you do? I mean, how do you tell a company like Microsoft no? I mean, you don't buy the product, or you get on the podcast and complain?
Well, yeah, that's right. That's right.
But this also comes back to this services model where you're paying a flat fee. And so the direct, it's not like any of these products directly make money. They're all part of that fee.
Yeah.
And so,
listen, the problem with this topic is it's everything. It's everything. You could toss out the name of any service.
I agree.
Anyone who knows
it's not just Microsoft.
At you 5 or 10 things that are horrible.
You've seen it everywhere.
Here's an example I just had the other day. In my Google News feed, there was a story that I clicked on. It turned out to be from the New York Times, and it wouldn't let me read it because you have to sign into the New York Times. And I have a New York Times subscription. So I clicked on it, and this screen appeared on the bottom third of the screen that told me that you have a whatever subscription you have, you should upgrade to this better subscription that costs a lot more money. And I couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah.
It would not let me. There was nothing to. Well, I'm sorry. There was an X, and I couldn't. It wouldn't. I'm like, nothing. It would never go away. That is exactly this thing.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
We were talking about
already
this.
Paying you. You're still showing me ads, and now you're going to put up a freaking blocker on a third of the screen.
We were talking about this yesterday on Mac Break Weekly, with regard to Apple TV and well, for instance, HBO Max or now Max has that slide out thing, and Alex was saying, I just try to skip through those before it slides out because I don't want to. But it's
so they don't play. I know, because you don't want it to play.
They no longer care about the customer.
Now you're playing a game.
It's all about trying to get more money.
I know, it's like a dexterity test.
Yeah.
This will be part of my tip, unfortunately, but I do think this is the biggest issue of our age for people like us who are concerned about this stuff.
I think there's going to be a backlash. I think customers are getting to the point now where we're starting to get fed up, whether it's Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. It's happening universally. It's the insuredification of the internet. Corey was absolutely right. Of all technology. And I think people are just going to turn their back on technology at some point. They're counting on the fact that we're hooked. They're counting on the fact that we're addicted. And
if you watch it, I know, but you can push them. You can push people too far.
Yeah.
Part of it will be price. I think we were hitting a real issue there this year.
Yeah.
And then part of it's going to be this, caring about their needs over our needs. And it's like, I'm paying you. What is
for some reason
paying you? What are you doing?
Every tech publication this week has the story that Netflix is going to raise prices as soon as the SAG-AFTRA strike is over.
Right. Even though, by the way, they've never said that.
Well, I'm thinking the only reason that you see this in the Journal and everywhere else is they've been planning this. Netflix is planning the story. They're floating a trial balloon.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Right? Why else?
Sure.
But
you know what?
At some point, they're going to raise the prices.
It's like any other conspiracy theory. Right. We would say no.
We just go, okay.
So
bye-bye.
All right.
Our show today brought to you by our great friends at Duo. I mean, you've used Duo. I've used Duo's great. Duo protects against breaches. It is, I would say, the leading access management suite. Strong, multi-layered defenses and innovative capabilities that only allow legitimate users into your network, into your apps, and keep bad actors out. It's that simple, but it really works. And incidentally, one of the things that people always say when I say, oh, you're using Duo, right, is they say, well, what about user productivity? This is the beauty part. For any organization that's concerned about being breached and needs protection fast, Duo can quickly enable strong security, but not only not impact user productivity, actually improve it. Duo prevents unauthorized access with multi-layered defenses and modern capabilities that thwart sophisticated malicious access attempts. But here's the key. It's kind of just-in-time authentication. It will increase authentication requirements in real time when risks rise, reduces it when there's less risk. It kind of knows how much authentication is necessary, which means you get swift, easy, secure access. That's one of those bumper stickers, right? Swift, easy, secure. Pick two. Well, no, you can get all three with Duo. Duo, it provides an all-in-one solution for MFA, for passwordless, single sign-on, and trusted endpoint verification. Duo helps you implement zero trust principles by verifying users and their devices, and it really works. Start your free trial. Sign up today. You'll see how great Duo is, how it can improve security without impacting productivity. cs.co/twit is the address. cs.co/TWIT. And we thank Duo so much for their support. So what's happening with 23H2? Are we still on Windows?
We're going to move on. No, we're done.
Enough.
It's yeah.
How about Chromebook Plus? Are you excited?
You know what? Excited is a strong word for someone like me, but I would say I'm interested. I mean, I've always found Chromebooks to be incredibly limiting, but I also feel that their kind of inherent advantages have never really been broached by Microsoft stupidly, and that there's an opening here. And if they could make one that makes sense for more people, maybe this makes some sense. So Chromebook Plus is just
is this the gaming Chromebook they keep pushing?
I think it came out of that. It's this notion of we can have Chromebooks that have good specs and still are affordable relative to premium computers, and that these might appeal to more people. Yeah. And honestly, all the things that make a Chromebook good are good, and there's some things that are limiting. So I don't know. I got the prototype of this was the HP Dragonfly Pro Chromebook that came out back in probably March. And it is, high-end PC specs. Very nice. But it's Chromebook, So you run into all those stupid little limitations that for me are big blockers.
Yeah. Is it Android or isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just that.
And are we, do we care more about Android this year or Chromebook? I can't remember. It kind of goes back and forth. So I think there's an opening here for them, and not just in education and not just in low-cost computers. I think like a lot of people, like you guys, right? They announced that first Pixel Chromebook. Come on, you were like, oh, that's interesting, and then you look into it and you're like, oh, it's a Chromebook. So I think
first I bought one.
There you go.
Then I figured out it was a Chromebook.
Yeah, so I've had the same. I've owned many Chromebooks. In fact, I owned the first ever Chromebook, that CR48 that Google gave out for a little while to people. I had one of those. I had a Pixel Chromebook. I had a Pixel Book, various HPs and Acers, transforming convertibles, traditional laptops. Some advanced hardware along the way, fingerprint readers.
Yeah, it's not the hardware that's the problem.
Right. So I think adding Android app compatibility was a big step because you're addressing kind of an app gap. But then you're like, well, these are Android apps, right? And so the emphasis in recent years has been adapting Android to big screen devices, which people hear and they think of folding screens and tablets. And yes, but also, by the way, Chromebooks, right? These big screen experiences in Android apps as they get more and more mature. That's a cool idea. And now, of course, AI is coming down the pike, and so they're talking about that stuff. So I need to spend more time with it because when I do spend time with it, I always run into something. And so I wrote a very lengthy article about this in Google Docs on a Chromebook. I got Adobe to get me into Adobe CC for a little while so I could use Photoshop for the web, which is one of the things they're pushing. And you can only access through a CC subscription, which is Adobe. And it doesn't have enough. It's not there. It can't even do like cropping, let alone cropping to specific aspect ratios, is a feature that's missing right now. So it's kind of goofy, right? So it's not even essentials level of Photoshop, but it will get there, right? I mean, we have apps like Clipchamp that are web-based video editors. There are Android app video editors that Google is promoting for Chromebook Plus. Luma Vision, I think, was one of them, and I don't remember the other one. But like this, for more, it's sort of like the discussion around an iPad. Like, the size of the audience that could use an iPad as a primary or a sole, computing device other than a phone grows more and more each year. And it's possible for that to happen in Chromebook too, right? I mean, and this is a more traditional kind of computer that I think will be familiar to people. Microsoft should really get off their butts and make full PWA offline support Office app versions of their web apps. And they haven't, although Outlook is going to get there first, I think, Outlook.com. But, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. I think this world's going to happen. So there's a chance. I mean, they've never had a virus, right? Not once.
Do you think Microsoft's once bit, twice shy because of Windows S and then netbooks? Yep. And both of them were kind of calamities.
Yeah. The netbook was the first of those, obviously, and that was them bringing back XP, right? When Vista was current, they brought something out called Windows XP Starter Edition because Vista was too heavy to run on netbooks, and then and they did that because of Linux, right? Linux was what Asus and the other companies were putting on the early netbooks, and then for Chromebook, Chromebook and Chrome OS, whatever, took off in education, especially in the low end of the education market, that really cash-strapped schools. And Microsoft responded with Windows 10S and walking around with a USB key, and a teacher could do like configuration on computers between classes, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. But Windows 10X might have addressed this space as well. I think we're going to see more. We talk about Edge books, which is something we all make up, but Edge is getting more and more OS features like split screen support and things like that. You could kind of see it. It's possible. I think they're onto something. And by the way, Google just eliminated their biggest Achilles heel by doing 10 years of support. 10 years of support.
8 years on the new Pixels, right? 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, and the 7 on the Pixels. And by the way, that's OS and security updates.
That's really fantastic.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. They went from last place in both of those markets to first. That's pretty incredible. And by the way, that's in the span of about a month and a half.
Yeah.
No, seriously, they were laughing stocks in both cases. So I agree. There's something going on. I mean, we'll see.
The reason you want this market is because it's so big, or because you want to get them young and get them hooked on Windows?
There's a little bit of all of that, right? I mean, I've often this is the thing I've argued about Microsoft and to Microsoft is that Google has this stranglehold on education in many cases that people who come into the workforce are going to start expecting the things they used then, assuming they liked it, right? I mean, I get a lot of pushback from the old IT pro types, to which I respond, when are you retiring exactly? Because guess what's happening soon? You're not going to be making the decisions. And it's going to be one of those kids that came up with, Google Docs and Chromebooks. My daughter in high school heard me talking to my wife about PowerPoint, and she said, "What's PowerPoint?" And I said, It's a computer program that lets you make presentations." And she goes, "Oh, is it like Microsoft's version of Google Sheets?" Or whatever the Google thing's called. I'm like, go to your room.
That's hysterical. Oh, you mean like Sheets? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, I know what that is. Yeah. So that's her background, and she's 21 now, by the way, guys, and entering the workforce. And God help every one of you.
And he's going to lead with slides over PowerPoint.
Slides, Google Slides. Yeah. Right. Sheets is the Excel, the thing that's better than Excel. No, just kidding.
Neither. So, the point is interesting because neither of them are better than Microsoft.
No, of course they aren't. But you know what?
But they're good enough.
This is the conversation. Seriously, you talk to a guy who's an accountant or in any field where they need Excel and all this crazy advanced features, and they're like, "Oh, the Google thing, it's laughable." It's like, yeah, but not everyone's like you. Right. Most people need pretty basic features.
Yeah, that's the real thing. Is maybe
that's the problem.
Yeah, simplicity is better.
Yeah, you're going to become a unicorn. Like simplicity has its place.
Excel has Python now. Everything's going to be fine.
yeah, that speaks to simplicity, right? Yeah. So anyway, we don't need to debate the whole thing, but this thing is interesting to me because these premium spec Chromebooks are going to run $400 to $700, $800, and they are the equivalent of a $1,000 to $1,500 PC laptop. A much smaller on disk and in RAM system than Windows, a much simpler system, a much easier system to manage. Secure. The updating is laughably easy. It's predictable.
Yeah.
Once a month, reboots in 2 seconds.
They just don't have the baggage of the old Windows.
Yep. I gave my daughter a fancy M2 MacBook Air for her work and writing.
Right.
And she ended up saying, "Now, can you give me back the Pixel book I had? I prefer that."
That's crazy. Wow.
That's
See, there you
wild.
go.
Prefer it.
I shouldn't say that's crazy. That's not crazy. I mean, good for her. It's
And by the way, she keeps everything in the cloud in Google Drive.
there you go. See,
So
she'll never lose
Not
it.
a folder in sight.
It was easy for her.
There are
No
folders
made
in
up
the cloud.
folders.
Shut up.
But it was easy for her because I had already wiped the Pixel book. I said, "Sure, I still have it."
You're as old as I am. What are you talking
So I gave it to her. She logs in and everything's there. It's good to go. It's a nice setup, really.
Yep. And by the way, this is the rationale behind what Microsoft is doing with MSAs and OneDrive, right?
Yeah, but as
In
soon
Windows,
as they
right?
do it, it's more
I
complicated,
know.
right?
We it's complicated because the system's complicated. It's complicated because a lot of the user base are me and Richard and you, and we're like, "What the hell are you doing
Yeah.
screwing around with our system?" Like, we have a way of doing things
Right.
here.
That's right.
Microsoft has a terrible problem with always deferring to their existing install base. Like
Yeah.
10X was not for us. It was for another
Right.
market. But when
Yeah.
they had a tough
Well,
time reaching that market, they started talking to us and we
Yeah.
ripped it apart.
We're like, "No, we
Yeah.
don't want this." So I'm saying let me get this straight. After all of the 10S things that you did, after Windows RT, you're telling me that you're coming out with a system that won't run Win32 apps? Okay. So do you not learn from anything? Because that was the problem the whole time, right? Which is part of the thing that we talked about earlier about getting those Win32 apps, not necessarily into the store, although Microsoft might present that as the UI, but rather
Well, that was the belief of the workaround, right? The whole point here was, hey, 99% of what you do is fine in 10X. You need this one app.
That was
and
always the
everybody's
problem.
one app is different.
Yep.
And so if we find a way to modernize
I
that one
begged,
app,
I begged Terry Myerson to make Windows 10S a switch where you install the one like Chrome, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe iTunes back in the day, whatever it was, the printer driver. And then you flip the switch and everything else is 10S. Just do that.
Yeah, it's harder than that. One would argue that's the path they're on now with Windows 365
Yes.
and with Azure Virtual Desktop. It's like, hey, for the one app, it lives in the virtual desktop, and it's just an icon on your machine, and you launch it.
There's different language, and there are different technologies you can use to describe what's happening. Sometimes it's a VM, sometimes it's a container, sometimes it's a thing up in the cloud. So it doesn't matter. In a way, it doesn't matter. The point is, we want to reduce our reliance.
I want my one app. Yeah.
On all the security problems of Win32, but still give us Chrome or whatever the app is that we need. Yep.
Well, and also that innate security that comes from that. That's thing,
exactly right. Yeah,
it's
exactly. That's exactly
more reliable, less power consumption, fewer problems.
The most secure computer in the world is possible today. It just doesn't run apps and doesn't connect to the internet. Do you want that computer? Because if you don't, we got to make some compromises, right?
Yeah.
And
but it's very secure.
It's very secure. It is very secure. In fact,
so
it could be running Windows NT 4. Yeah, you don't have to turn it on. Exactly.
Keeps things absolutely safe.
Yep.
Are we going to talk about Uncle Satya? I was surprised about Uncle Satya.
Yeah. What do you think of this?
I think when you're, I think everybody takes a cautionary page from what happens to Gates, and it's all different when you're in front of government. Yeah.
Under oath is a tough thing, because this is the marketing versus reality. The Google is in, for those who don't know, is facing the DOJ in a federal court for antitrust charges related to its alleged abuse of its search engine, which is dominant, by the way, is a monopoly, absolutely.
Utterly dominant. Yeah.
Yeah. Literally. I mean, so, you can have debates about different platforms. This one, I don't know. There's not much of a debate happening here. So it's been very interesting because what you hear is the other side of the story. So, for example, Apple infamously, Steve Jobs said, because of Android, we are in a thermonuclear war with Google. Sadly or not, he passed away. But since then, what we learn is Google and Apple might have the most lucrative partnership in all of personal technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get Apple executives on the stand under oath, it's not like those marketing events where everything we do is great. It's actually everything Google does is great. And the reason we partner with them, it's not the money, it's the money, is because it could be both, by the way, and it is both. It's because A, it's lucrative for them financially, and B,
Google pays them a huge amount of money.
It's lucrative. And what it allows them to do is essentially partner, No, not essentially, literally partner in that the iPhone has a huge and lucrative user base. They're searching for things that are kind of high end and, they tend to buy things that are expensive. Right. And Google has the best search engine. So it allows Apple to take advantage of that. It allows Google to take advantage of that audience, and they both share the revenues. It's essentially a revenue share is what it is. It's always presented as Google paying Apple because that's where the check goes, but literally Apple pays in the form of opening this thing up to their audience. They talked about some of the compromises they have to make under the covers because they promote privacy pretty big over in Apple land. I don't know if you noticed that.
Right.
What happens on an iPhone stays on iPhone unless you're using Google
when it goes to Google.
Yeah. Eddie Q gave a nice little tip in court. If you want to avoid that, don't sign in to Google. You can use Google search on an iPhone, and if you don't sign in, you will not. Google cannot track you. If you do, it does. So it's just like every other phone. Sorry, and I bet most people do. So that was very interesting, right?
Well,
so we got the other side.
Tried using Google not signed in? Like it's pretty fussy.
Oh, is it okay? I'm not. Yeah. No, I signed in. I've given my soul to Google now. It's okay.
I know. He'd already owned it. Eventually, you acknowledge that he owned it. Might as well take advantage of it. Yeah, I might as well use the services. I mean, paying with my soul. Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella showed up on Monday, and yikes! As a bit of background, back in August, or I guess it was August, the Wall Street Journal published an amazing kind of teardown of Bing and all the AI stuff they were doing, where they basically looked at every possible web stat there is and said, when this thing came out, Satya Nadella was a little over the top. He was talking about how proud he was. He could make Google dance, and that every percentage of search market share that we take back from them is worth billions of dollars. Yeah. And can anyone tell me how many percentages of search they took from Google in the past 6 or 7 months?
Zip.
0. In fact, they lost a tiny bit of market share. Yeah. And he described this as a $100 billion bet. $100 billion.
Wow. Well, and I think that's true, but it's not on Bing.
Yeah. Well, it's across everything. I think, look, they've been keeping Bing afloat for many, many years, but here's the ugly truth, because this is a great debate. This is the type of thing in my world where people get a little upset. So I'm a Microsoft guy. And if I criticize like a Surface product, right? You get the Surface guys who are like, whoa, what are you talking about, Paul? Surface is great. I hear from those people with Bing, if you can believe that. So I'm like, Bing is terrible. It's a waste of time. I don't know why anyone uses it. And they'll say, well, Paul, in my experience, Bing delivers much better search results than Google does. Okay. When was the last time you used Google? 1999. So, it's like, okay, that's cute. But most people understand Bing to be a running joke. It's the butt of jokes to normal people. And other people might try it from time to time, like I do, and then they're like, "Oh God, right? This is why I use Google search."
The usual way you try Bing is because defaults have been reset again, and you're like, "These search results terrible."
That's right.
Oh wait, it's Binging.
It's Bing. Okay. Yep, that's the experience. And you're like, "I'm going right back." I go back to the warm embrace of the thing that
you
works.
don't detect it because of the page or anything. You detect it because of the results.
Yeah. So here's the horrible truth in all this. To the people who love Bing and maybe just want it to survive or even beat Google because they love Microsoft, whatever the reason is, doesn't matter. And to the people who argue, well, maybe they're abusing their monopoly, but Google search is the best. The horrible truth is this. Both of those things can be true. Bing is worse. He said it. This is Satya Nadella saying this, not me. Satya Nadella admitted that Bing is worse and will always be worse because they don't have the users to get the data to improve the engine to make it a difference.
There lies the question: is the majority of the customer base using Google because it's better, or is Google better because they force the majority of the customer base to use? I believe it to be the former, but I'm going to throw everyone a bone here. Both can be true because now both are true. Because more people use Google, Google is better. Because fewer people use Bing, Bing is worse. This is the Microsoft CEO saying this, not me. The problem for Microsoft is there's no amount of money they can spend that will fix this problem. They can't pour more billions of dollars into Bing to improve the service because even if they do, no one's going to use it. That's not how it works. No one is looking to Consumer Reports to find out what the best search engine is in the world. They can't do anything to fix it. And there's two huge problems with this. One is that this means even if Bing was better, no one would notice and it wouldn't matter, tree falling in the woods, et cetera, et cetera. It's not, but even if it was. So why even bother trying? And also, they just spent tens of billions of dollars integrating AI into Bing.
and it didn't move the needle at all. That's
Well,
the biggest
they didn't
push they've
spend
ever made.
They'd spent a lot building the large language model. The integration part was not that costly. The bigger issue here was the large language model a better way to present search results that could have?
Yeah, so it's a different thing. So I think we're going to evolve our understanding of the stuff just as they're evolve the products. I think the knee-jerk reaction back in February is this is the next search. Like this replaces search.
That was the hope, and there's a reason to make the Bing play. Can we move the needle?
I think this is really about. Trying to say this, sort of making pervasive intelligence available kind of everywhere, including search, right? So this past week, I must have a story about this in here. Do I? Yeah. So I'm going to get to this, but Bing Image Creator was updated with dall-e 3 capabilities. This is one of the things they showed off at the Microsoft event. This is amazing. Concurrently with this, Microsoft has been updating Bing Chat all year long. I mean, it's like the new Teams, right? Every day almost, it feels like there's a new update. Bing does this, blah, blah, blah. And I use it, right? Because I'm trying to figure out what it's good for, where it works.
Do you play with it or do you actually use it for something?
I play with it and use it, right?
Yeah, I play with it, but I haven't found a real use for it.
So here's something I did. So this is a good example of like, maybe you could search for this exactly in Google search and come up with this exact answer. But I was thinking about a topic that is that thing that's my tip of the week. And I was trying to come up with a title for it. And the phrase that came into my brain was love and anger. And Love and Anger is the name of a Kate Bush song from the late 1980s. And which I love. It's a great song. But, like so many songs, like I could probably sing the whole thing for you right now. I have no idea what the lyrics mean. Like I know the words, but I don't actually know what they mean. So I wanted to find out if the song meant something that would be relevant to the article I was going to write. Like maybe if it's similar, that would make more sense. So I asked Bing Chat, what is the meaning behind the song Love and Anger by Kate Bush?
Oh God.
And it does what Bing Chat does.
Yeah.
It does what Bing Chat does. It reaches out to places on the internet that already have this answer and put it into a little narrative. So here's the thing. I believe it's correct. It makes sense what it wrote. In other words, I don't think it made anything up. I didn't actually research that, but the thing that struck me about it wasn't so much that it is what some people might call a glorified search result. You got to remember, it's doing two things here that I think are important. It's combining information from multiple sources into a coherent narrative. And that 3-paragraph thing that it responded with, which I could read if you want.
It's a synthesis.
But it's also presented in a way that is articulate and intelligent.
Deceptively
and concise. Well, it doesn't matter, right?
Even if it is incorrect.
In this case, I think it's correct. I mean, I'm just, all I'm trying to say is, look, this thing will get better. It might have already gotten better. And the problem for Microsoft is it might not matter. Because not only do these, I could, like I or you or anyone else could talk about how much better it is. Oh my God, it's getting so good. It's like Apple Maps people saying, oh, you don't understand. It's caught up with Google Maps. And it's like, I don't think you understand, but whatever. I'm sure it's gotten better, but it's not going to move the needle. And that's the potential problem for Microsoft that he voiced. He said, we could pour hundreds of billions into this. And what if on the end of it, we're at 4% instead of 3%?
Right.
I would
also point out, not necessarily that he's telling the truth, but that he definitely has a spin in that scenario. He's not going to advocate for Google while Google's under an antitrust trial. He's going to show how Google is suppressing
That's right.
the market.
So actually, that's the important point. Apple, interestingly, was a witness for the defense. They're there for Google. That's why they're there.
Right.
They agreed with Google to explain the benefits of the service that they get and why it's good for everybody. Microsoft is there for the DOJ, which is ironic, maybe, if you believe that history exists in a continuum or something. But Microsoft, which was
sure
right,
Brad Smith said it's the right place to be.
There you go. Yes, I love Brad Smith. So, from his position, Satya Nadella, there you get this sense of futility. It's a little bit like what we got out of Xbox in the FTC hearings, where you're like, oh my God, like this. He makes it sound so dire. And what he came out with was, and trust me, don't trust me. I believe that he did. No, don't trust me. But I think this makes sense. I don't think he meant this literally, like you should, as the courts order this to happen. But his answer was, the only way this gets fixed is if Apple either buys Bing or pays us to use it, and we get access to that user base that Google now controls. And now we have this virtuous cycle of an audience that is of an appreciable size and good information, and we can improve our service. And you can make a case. Bing probably at Microsoft would go to Apple and say, look, I mean, it's us. We're going to be more private. We're going to do things better, on those lines. We align in that way. But here's the problem. For Apple to do that, either one, they would have to insurtify their own customers by offering them a worse off product. And that is a catch-22. Yep, for some period of time. Can you imagine that little bit of marketing from Tim Cook yelling across the rainbow there on the grass in front of the Apple thing?
Say, and I think it would be right, it's more private. We've chosen a more private solution. We've gotten fed up with
You told us you care about your security, so here we go.
Now, here's the question. Could they get $12 billion from Microsoft?
That's the thing. You know what? I think they could.
Because they make a lot of money off of Google.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So, there are other issues that relate to this that I think are part of a problem. Google, part of the Google antitrust thing is that they own a monopoly in this space on online ads. And so that, Microsoft wants to have these companies advertise on Bing as well. And they're like, we can't, according to our little agreement with Google, we can't even do that. So even if they got that audience, like a lot of things have to change, right, for this to make sense, which, was the point of having an antitrust trial, I guess. But,
there's an interesting thought here to say, what if there were two search engine products out there that each owned like 45% of the market?
Yeah, exactly. Like we have in mobile.
Would we be in a better place?
Yes.
Would it?
I think so.
Yes, because Google has free reign to garbage.
Overall search result quality would be lower.
We need a Chromium
Why would you say
Google
that?
search. We need Searchium. Right.
Yeah. But the argument is that by having a gestalt of everything in one place, you have the optimal search result. When you split the search result.
The counter argument is that because Google is 80 or 90% of the market, and they know they've got a captive audience, honestly, you wouldn't.
They spend no money on search,
and their front page is not better because the search is being moved farther and farther down below the fold. The actual results, so they can show Google results up there.
This is kind of getting a little farther afield, but one of the things we have learned about Google, by the way, is that Microsoft came up with their AI stuff in February, kind of shocking the world a little bit, and Google stumbled a little bit in the beginning, messaging wise, but the thing we all understand about Google is like they have this stuff. They've been doing this too. They have been as aggressive internally as Microsoft has. The only difference is they've been kind of doing it themselves. They didn't have to invest in a company like OpenAI to do this. They actually have it. So what's the narrative, right? The narrative from Google is the public narrative is, we had this stuff, but it's not safe. It hallucinates.
We decided not to use it. Yeah.
We decided not to do it. But what's the reality? The reality is those people inside of Google who were doing this AI stuff said, this is going to replace search. Let's get going on this. And the money guys at Google were like, are you out of your mind? This thing is a cash cow.
We're making so much money.
80% of our revenues. We are not screwing with this thing.
With it. I think you're
That's
exactly
stupid.
right.
So Microsoft,
they have innovator's dilemma in a big way.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what happens with monopolies. You move into maintenance, you stop innovating. So Microsoft, ironically or not, triggered is starting to be a Google avalanche of AI products and services because this stuff was all just sitting there waiting, and now they're burping it out, and we saw some of it today at the Pixel event, right? This Bard stuff coming, Google Assistant, and of course they're doing this. So anyway, it's a messy, awesome, big topic. It's very interesting. I love anything that gives me insight into what's going on behind the scenes because marketing is always so different from reality. And we got to see it big time with Satya Nadella and Eddie Q so far in the Google trial. I can't wait to see the Google guys.
Love these trials, by the way.
Love this.
Same thing with Microsoft Activision and Apple Epic.
Yes.
That's the best. We're finally seeing behind the curtain.
Yes. Yep. It's the best.
I'd say it's still a spin. At least it's a different spin.
Yeah, but when you get Discovery and you see these emails, there's not much spin in the emails.
It's closer to the truth.
It was one of the because of big tech's experience with antitrust, thanks to Microsoft. Google saw Bill and also Jim Alton on the stand, who was shown to be lying essentially, which is too bad. But there was certain documents that were part of Discovery that Google did not want let out into the world. Now, in the Activision Blizzard trial, there was a lot, hearing, there was a lot of that stuff as well. You redact things because it's private information, either to one of the two companies involved or a third party, and that's completely understandable. But this particular one, the rationale for it was just embarrassing. and they didn't want it out in the world. And the judge finally said, screw you. There's nothing proprietary here. We're putting it out. And all it was some Google idiot bragging about how awesome search was internally and using a phrase very much like cutting off the air supply, which is the famous Microsoft thing from the 1990s. And it was just embarrassing. And they had to say, this person's opinions do not reflect the views of the company, blah, blah, blah. They didn't want it out. And,
but the guy's literally using the Microsoft term that got Microsoft declared.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing. It was not exactly the same term, but it was very, very close. It was something very similar. So I love this stuff. Like I love it. I love it. So this is, aside from like a leak, like the Xbox thing, which is also amazing.
Juicy.
Oh, the best, right? Because most of the time what we're talking about is like the Swift key keyboard got a new character code, and it's like, who cares?
Well, and we only can guess.
Decoding corporate speak about
exactly.
product.
Yeah, and we're just reading the tea leaves instead of actually seeing under the kimono, which is not a good image, but you get the idea.
It's not.
Every time we read those emails and realize these are just people who have their own foibles and are trying to make things.
That's right.
It's relieving, isn't it?
But it's when you see a good marketing event like Apple, maybe a little over the top with the Hollywood special effects, but God, do they own messaging, right? Even Google in their own kind of down market way, or Amazon does a good job of this to the devices event. You get this kind of what seems like a cohesive set of things, and then when you look under the covers, you realize like these guys have no idea what they're doing. Like they're just throwing it together. Someone, I think it's kind of, I always think this thing is fascinating. Yeah. So anyway, with regards to Microsoft and Bing and Google and Apple and yada, 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 whatever anyone's opinions, the reality is that Bing is in a hole. They're never getting out of it. And it's going to take some kind of a Hail Mary miracle on the part of Apple, or, frankly, I don't know who else could do this, or a regulatory divestiture of Google's ad DoubleClick business, getting the ads away from search. Right,
boy, that would be interesting because that's their revenue. That's
it. And
these are pretty specific remedies. Like you're pushing.
They're also very far-fetched, right?
Well, they're draconian, but I think they are correct, and I don't.
But they should be considered. These are the biggest companies on earth. If you're serious about severing their control over our society, this is what you have to look at: taking Instagram and WhatsApp away from Facebook, taking ads away from Google. Google without ads, I think, could still be a great business. They would still be able to, get ads and make money from it from various third parties, but it would be like this open, healthy market of different companies that could provide that service. Microsoft has an ad business and it can't compete because of search.
Do you think, the thing that's really changed and is changing is this addition of AI to search. I have yet to see it deliver material advantage, but do you think ultimately
in search,
like traditional kind of, I'm typing in a term and tell me what I'm looking for?
I really think this is going to, I think maybe the problem is that we saw this chat feature, because this is very specifically a chat feature. It is literally a text-based prompt that achieves some end. And that end is not the answer to what day of the week was April 5, 1972. That's a search.
Right.
It's the thing I asked about
analyze Kate Bush's song,
or create an image based on certain parameters, or I would like a 5-day itinerary for Mexico City, that type of thing, like where it's a little more involved. But honestly, I think that is important on some level, and maybe it's a side feature to search, I guess, or it's
or here's a bunch of PDFs.
I have a show coming in a couple of weeks. Where we're talking to one of the scientists in this space, and he said it's a language computer. You plug in a prompt, you get out a result.
I like that take. Yeah.
But as far as like it impacting people, I honestly think, and there's no reason it can't happen in search, but Google throughout Google Workspace, Gmail, Docs, etc. Microsoft throughout Microsoft 365, especially. I think these are the two great examples. It's going to impact basic productivity. It's the same example I always use. I don't know how to use PowerPoint, but I have to do this one presentation, and it helps you get over that. And there are pros and cons to this, because on the one hand, it's allowed me to do my job better. On the other hand, you could make a really good argument across the board, like that means someone over there doesn't have a job because the guy who was good at PowerPoint maybe isn't needed anymore for this.
Right.
And what's the net gain to a business? I think it is a net gain, right?
Yeah, but but again, the only thing we can go on and we have a lot about that, but what is it going to be in search? Is it going to help search? Is it going to make search better? This is Microsoft's hope that they can beat Google finally.
Yes. And so a million years ago, when the last time Microsoft made a big push with Bing, they had various. I could come up with a couple of these if you want, but the best one I thought, and I actually thought this was a good idea. You'll remember this. They came up with the term the answer engine, and the idea was at the time and today that Google is just this endless sea of blue links, and of course they weren't saying this then, but now we know that those blue links could be manipulated. That you're seeing a non-organic list of results that includes sponsor results, et cetera, et cetera. But you go and you say, what day of the week was February 5, 1972, or whatever I said earlier, or what. I was born on whatever date. What is my, astrological sign or what? The idea is sometimes a search is you ask a question, there is an answer, and you want that right there. That's it. That's all you want.
That's search
and
to me. That's search.
That's part of search. No, but part of search is also what's the best vacuum cleaner. And then there's a set of parameters, right? Depending on your needs,
submit
the size of your house.
In that case, I don't want an AI answer. I'm searching for a site like Wirecutter that will tell me what the best vacuum is. Consumer Reports.
But you have to pay for Wirecutter. And what if this thing pulled from good, we're in a world today we don't know, but let's pretend that AI was being trained on good sources, like known good sources. No, I know.
Instead of Sarah Silverman. Yeah, okay.
But no,
I thought you were going to say 8chan, but okay.
But the point is, but you want to. The answer is not a thing. It's a list of things, and then, or maybe you dive in further.
No, but
maybe part of this prompting is keep going. Right?
If you get that result, are you going to say, "Oh, great, thank you, ChatGPT, thank you, Bing Chat"? No, because we don't know. They may even have made up a vacuum cleaner. I want a definitive, authoritative source to tell me what the best vacuum cleaner is.
Of course you do, but I mean,
not some AI.
Maybe the AI is leaning on authoritative source. That would be the point. In other words, like when you use AI in Photoshop today or going forward, Firefly capabilities, you know that you're not stepping on anyone's IP, right? You know this. That's great. That's the artist version of what you're asking for. My wife writes about health and fitness and nutrition and well-being and all that stuff, and she cannot use Wikipedia. She can't. It's not, cannot trust that as a source. You can't.
It's same problem with Bing.
Right. And with
Bing
everything.
Chat.
But the goal here should be, but in a world in which search is what it is and the sources of information are what they are, most people are looking for, sometimes it's an answer, sometimes it's whatever. Sometimes it's as simple as, and this is something Google would be really good at. Of the top 3 vacuum cleaners, which are available to purchase today in my area?
You're just ignoring, though,
right now.
a fact of nature with these things, which is they hallucinate. And there is no
Oh, no, I'm not.
prospect for them no longer hallucinating, because that's not what they do. They're conversational computation engines. They don't understand what they're saying. So I think that you're saying, well, someday they'll be this good.
Your question was,
but they're not.
Okay, but it doesn't matter because that's how search works today too. So what's the difference? Like, in other
search
words,
at least
most
points
people,
to a human.
Well, but AI will point to sources too. That was one of the things I don't
made up sources sometimes, or made up stores, or made up hours. Okay. Every single time you get that result, you're going to want to check before you get in the car.
This is when before the internet was a big thing, there was something called Yahoo, where these 2 guys in a dorm room said, we are going to look at sites and determine which are the best, and we're going to present this as the curated list of what's good about the internet. And then Google and AltaVista and other whatever came around with these algorithmic search results. And it was probably someone back then saying the same thing. Well, you don't know where they're getting this information in.
We're not in that era, and we're not in an era, and I submit we never will be, where you can trust the AI. Wow. Right now, search is not the same as AI. And AI is not going to improve search.
All you did was ask me what I thought it would work in search. I didn't invent it. I'm not defending it.
No, I'm just saying it's not going to.
I'm just saying it's.
You've yet to give me a reason why AI will improve search.
I think it will for most people, honestly, because there will be because there are a range of things that people search for. And a lot of times what people end up doing, and I guarantee you this is for the there is a single answer searches. I bet 90-something% of people who search for things that are a little more complex go in and out of sites. And what they find oftentimes, say you have like a brown mark in your skin or some health thing and you're scared about it and you Google it. And then one site will be like, oh, you got nothing to worry about. Next site's like, oh my God, you have cancer. Like you have to deal with that now. Now you're saying that AI will never be able to be trusted, but we live in a world of misinformation. I don't think.
But you wouldn't
care.
Right now send that picture to an AI and say, "Oh, thank you, AI. I guess I'm not dying of cancer." You would want to say, you would want to look at WebMD or even a physician.
Well, I'm a reasonably smart person. I would.
Well, that's
I would
what I'm just saying.
doctor.
I don't think AI is going to improve search anytime soon.
Okay. Well,
that's my contention.
Okay. That's fine. But honestly, when you originally asked that, my original point was I think the bigger impact of AI is going to be in these productivity products and services.
Oh, I agree. And I'm not disputing that. In fact, I did the Kate Bush search on ChatGPT-4, and actually it was kind of impressive. Love and Anger is a song by Kate Bush, blah, blah. Interpreting a song, especially one written by an artist, is poetic and intricate as Kate Bush can be subjective. What a listener takes away from a song might differ from the intended meaning. However, Love and Anger touches on themes of communication, connection, and the challenges of understanding one another. The song's lyrics speak to the complexities. This was a very good answer. I don't know if it's true.
So
I don't know the
song. What the song means. So let me
does say, by the way, for the complete understanding, it would be best to listen to the song and read its lyrics.
All right. So I'll read you part. I won't read this whole thing. It's 4 paragraphs. It says, the song is about self-analysis, expressing one's true feelings, and turning to someone trustworthy when something difficult is happening. Okay. The lyrics suggest that opening up can lead to improvement. Right. But this actually explains what the song's about.
Okay.
And it's about who you can and cannot confide in when there's something you can't talk about. And it quotes from the lyrics to give the example of where that would be.
That's
the song also seems to be about breaking through personal limitations and like a spiritual cleansing.
Yeah, this says it suggests even in moments of anger or misunderstanding, there's underlying love.
No, I mean, knowing the song, I read that and I said, I think that's it. I think that's pretty good. So, and they quote 4 places that there are 4 sites out there.
Isn't Bing Chat the same as ChatGPT? I mean, this is ChatGPT 4.
It is based on ChatGPT.
So they came.
Yeah, but Microsoft,
that's one of, by the way.
No,
that's one of the issues. No, but that's one of the issues with this LLM. It's non-deterministic. Right. It will come up with a different answer every time.
Well, Microsoft puts their secret sauce on top of that, as they put it, which is a proprietary set of whatever learnings from Bing's and blah, 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 blah. So the things you'll get on Bing Chat will be even more different. I do the 5-day itinerary Mexico City thing all the time. I do it on the same service over and over again.
And you get different results each time? Or
Yeah.
That's the thing you don't want when you show a picture of a mole.
No, I know, but that's
well, one day you're going to say it's cancer, one day it's not.
But you're looking, but that's that in that case, there is an answer, right? I mean, there is an answer, right? I think, I do think there is a net gain to search from AI. And
well, so does Microsoft, obviously. I mean, that's
right.
And apparently so does Google. They're all terrified about this.
Yep. Right. The question is how you monetize it, right?
Yeah.
And
I think it remains to be seen. We'll see.
Well, it remains to be seen that we're going to get ads, and that's, I didn't put this in the notes, but someone has seen ads on the Windows desktop with CoPilot.
Oh, wow.
Supposedly. I've not seen that, but anyway.
Richard, are you still with us or have you given up?
Entirely? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I would have given up on us, frankly.
It's 4 a.m.
Yeah, no, she's like, what am I doing? Yeah.
Richard's questioning his life choices at this point.
Yeah,
you should. Richard Campbell is here.
You're having a classic debate that's going on.
It is, and everybody's talking, about this. From Perth, Australia, Richard Campbell, runnersradio.com, Paul Thurrott, thurrott.com from Pennsylvania. You're listening to Windows Weekly.
I think we hit on big topics sometimes,
we do. This is,
and I think that reboot served you well, Paul. Things have been stable.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's all
okay. I'm glad it was my computer because that's an easily solvable problem.
Just throw it out the window.
Yeah, that's going to be the end game. Don't worry about that.
It's a lot of throwing.
Yeah. So, let's just wrap up this segment, I guess, if that's okay. There's a new version of OneDrive coming down the pike. Microsoft, as always, does a horrific job. I've reached out to them so many times. I did it again with this. Please, 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 please specify when what you're talking about is for businesses, for consumers, or for both. And they do sometimes. So it's kind of hard to say what's going on here. But the big stuff is, UI changes. Who cares? CoPilot coming to OneDrive as part of the Microsoft 365 thing, which will include Microsoft 365 chat, improved photo search, which Google's had for a long time, but it's the type of thing like my son's name is Mark. You want to search for something like Mark riding a bike in Paris. I don't want just pictures of bikes. I want pictures of that kid on a bike in that place, right? So it's going to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Integration throughout
and Mark's a doubly tough word because it could be a name and it could be, a smear on a piece of paper, right? Like
right. Yeah, okay, right. That's true. I guess I could use his full name. I mean, Google Photos and OneDrive both know Mark as Mark as a person.
Yeah, you would hope, right?
Well, I can see that they do. I mean, like it recognizes him in photos and things.
I'm always fascinated by how trained we are to write search expressions now. That presume that we presume we're going to speak the language of the tool,
right? Which is the exact opposite of the way this thing should be going, right? Right. It should be bending to our needs, not the
one thing you don't see an LLM do is ever ask for clarification.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think is also part of where this goes. So to the example I gave earlier, right? Imagine you go to some future AI-based search thing and you say, what's the best vacuum cleaner I can buy in this area at this time today? Because I need it today. And it might come back and say,
and it should clarify the area.
Say, okay, do you, well, I hope it knows, right? Location services, et cetera. Like, how far are you willing to go? Maybe you could follow up with specific needs. Like, it should prompt you.
Sure.
Right?
So what you're talking about essentially is a prompt preprocessor, something leveraging a large language model to improve,
to make an intelligent decision. Yeah, exactly. This is they added this to, well, at least Google did, probably did too, but the ability to you say the code word to get it going. You ask it a question, but now it's still listening, so you can ask follow-up questions, right?
Yeah.
And this is the next kind of natural stage in that equation, I would say, where it kind of comes back to you and says, I will do this sometimes. Like if I, this is a stupid example, but sometimes I'll see a picture on my smart screen that I don't want to every see again, right? It shouldn't be there. So I'll say, hey, go. Sorry, everybody. Every one of my devices just came on.
Lit up.
Yep. Sorry about that. Delete this photo. And if there are two photos side by side, it will say, did you want me to delete the one on the left or the one on the right? And that's just common sense, right? It's just common sense. But I feel like that kind of interaction, that's got to be the next step.
Very uncommon. But yeah, honestly, the device asking for clarification would give you encouragement.
Right.
Really.
To be a little more precise
when you say bicycle, you mean like
right.
Now let's go get that.
When you say mark, do you mean a mark on a piece of paper, or do you mean Mark, your son of 25 years or whatever? And then it will know going forward. I probably mean the other one, right? The second one,
right?
So I see this coming. Also, I also this voice interaction with which Google or Amazon talked about it at the devices event a week or two ago, and Google talked about a little bit today during a Pixel event. Is to me was always the next logical step, which is asking people to go back and type is like a little goofy. Most people are on phones. This is something people are going to want to say. And I know you can click a little microphone thing, but this is the world I'm sure Gates and Jobs and other people envisioned 20, 30 years ago, well, 30, 40 years ago, where the computer would be sitting there aware of your presence all the time, the type of thing we're freaking out about now for privacy reasons, and would, understand if I said something to my wife that I was not talking to it, but if I said something declarative in its direction, it would say, yeah, I can do that. Or no, I can't, whatever. Right. I mean,
sorry, Dave.
Science fiction.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then this is just kind of a fun one in a way, because there's this thing called, I clicked on, I connected to the wrong article, so you can't look at it, but there's a thing called Microsoft Lists. And Microsoft Lists was a thing that debuted in Microsoft 365 commercial several years ago. By several, I probably mean 3 or 4, but as a web-only service, it came to the
mobile devices over time. It came to consumer on mobile a couple of years ago, and now it's available to consumer on mobile as well. And so what the heck is this thing, right?
It's a list.
A lot of people, it's a list. So, well, it is like, there's lots of terms for this kind of thing, like a task manager or whatever.
It's not a to-do list, though, specifically.
It's not a to-do list. So, and that's the thing. So here's my definition. I think you might enjoy this. Because I write books and because Microsoft uses this terminology, when I write about things like Windows Calendar or Outlook, there's this notion of an event. An event is a thing that you put into your calendar. It has a specific day and time and length and all that kind of stuff. And if you add another person to that event, it becomes a meeting. That's a meeting. A meeting is an event for which there are two or more people, right? So a list, an app, like a list is a list. And if you can check those things off and mark them as done, it's a to-do list. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like it's so.
I don't know why list isn't in loop. Like, why are these separate?
I think lists and to-dos are in loop, right? I think those things are also loop components, right? So they could be anywhere. But I would just kind of argue, like in the old world of apps, before we get to these kind of weird containerized things like loop. And speaking of which, did you know that Google has something like Loop? It's got a stupid name and I forget it, but they've been working on it since the spring. So they're doing a loop-like thing as well, right? But anyway, if you can have one app called a calendar that can do events and meetings, why can't we have one app that does lists and to-dos? I don't know why we have separate apps, but we do.
Yeah. I don't know why. So, there's way too many icons in M365. It's making me crazy.
So I use Notion
between the
for
wife
all of
and I,
things.
though.
What's that?
Yeah. I have set up Loop now between the wife and I.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting.
To it.
Did you do it through MSA or through like a commercial account thing?
I thought I was setting it up through my M365 E5s, and I think it ended up going up through MSA because it's now giving me prompts to make me think, you're not associated with my E5, are you?
That's interesting.
Which is going to cause problems later. So
you know that you're working with people outside of your environment. Do you trust these people? Did you know they added themselves to you? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And real question is, can I tell from Loop whether I am associated with that tenant or the
This is on your phone or primarily
on the PC, on the phone? It doesn't matter because you cannot tell. There's no way to know.
Yep.
And it might have even popped that prompt just because it wasn't sure yet. But I have no way.
I'm going to be writing about this soon, but Loop is sort of like the new Outlook, which has been on a slow boil for 5 years.
Outlook or the new OneNote, because it's not email related per se.
No, I'm sorry. What I meant was it just seems like it's always on the back burner. Like Teams, boom, 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 features, right? AI, boom, 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 boom. Loop, it's like, like it's been very slow. Like I'm kind of curious what's going on with Loop because I want to get going on this thing. I'm kind of interested in it.
Yeah, but I get how you feel it's Notion-ish.
Well, the thing I like about Notion is it's one place to do all these things. So Notion is a place to take notes. Notion is a place I could use to write articles if I wanted to. I collaborate with my wife on lots of things, personal and work related as well. And you could do to-do lists. You could make a list, just a list. It doesn't have to be I mean, Notion is a place where you can do all these things at once. And this is, by the way, we talked about great debates for our industry. A company that does everything versus a company that does one thing. Same thing with apps, right? The Notion is an Outlook style app. It's an app that does a lot of different things. Lists is a Unix style app that does one thing. And there are pros and cons to both, right? And there's no answer to this debate. I don't mean to suggest there is, but we all have opinions on it, and I think lists and to-dos could be one thing, but draw the line wherever you want. That's where we're at. Okay. And then finally, in the AI Microsoft 365 space, Surface Laptop Studio 2 and Laptop Go 3, which were announced at that Microsoft event, are now generally available if you'd like to buy them. And
I'm trying to decide if this Studio 2 is my new device.
Yeah.
It loaded. It's expensive.
It is
expensive. Yeah? How much?
$5,000 almost, about.
$4 if you go for the high end.
Oh, $4. Jeez. Okay.
The high-end GPU.
And then you start looking at it, and you're like, this thing.
I mean, it's good, but is it that good?
Yep. And do you need the, the convertible functionality, right?
That.
Yeah, not at all, right? So just like Surface Book, even though you could detach it and do pens and stuff.
There's one reason to detach a Surface Book, and it's to know an iPad owner.
Right.
Right. So
You see what I
you're
can
in
do?
a business class seat, and they're wrestling to try and put their iPad on the back of the seat.
Right.
And you
And you can
unclick your screen, you flip it around, and you use the keyboard to hang it, and it works perfectly. That's the only reason I've ever done it.
Right. Yep. I agree. Yeah, that's funny.
But I would also argue, and the resolution on the screen's
Down from the book.
The Book 2 is 3K by 2K, and the Studio is less.
Really?
Yeah. No, there's
So what
resolution.
and this is this is a 14-inch device. So Surface Book was 13 and 15. And you had
the 15.
You have a 15. Okay.
So, I mean, the moment I'm staring at Dell XPS 15 with the 4K display and all the toys for $1,000 less.
Right.
Wow.
It doesn't have, and I think there are potential reliability issues with all of those things you're never going to use. The screen that flips around and
right. Why add that if you're not going to use it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just things to break. Which, by the way, like the screen removing feature on the Surface Book 2, which is now old, occasionally just is unhappy
exactly.
and won't play anymore.
Yep. You do the detach, reattach thing, or you try to detach it and it won't.
Yeah. Or it's just spitting errors at me where I haven't done anything. It's like, listen, you're not being asked to do anything. Please go away.
Right.
I watched the event, and I looked at the machine, and I looked at the specs, and I was really wanting to just pull the trigger. Like, new machine, I'm in on the beginning.
Should have been a no-brainer.
Should have been, and it wasn't. It just wasn't.
That's too bad.
Because of price? Because of what?
Because the feature set wasn't
comparable
good enough.
It's not comparable.
And then the price was also high. Like, I don't think price is the driver most of the time.
It's a 13th gen, which is just on the way out. It's the first gen of it's the first gen of an Intel MPU, which, whatever, you can't get around that, I guess.
Once upon a time, you wanted the flagship machine, but this is not a flagship machine. This looks like an end of a line machine.
Oh, that's not good if it's just coming out now. Yeah.
This seems like the last of the 13ths rather than the first of the 14ths.
Yes. No, I agree. Yes, I agree with that. Yep. Interesting. Okay. I was hoping you'd have a clear choice. And I was, when they announced it,
nothing's clear.
I was thinking, this isn't the no-brainer it needs to be.
It's not shiny. It's just not beautifully, like, you must own this. It is.
Yeah.
It is shiny. And I still swear that M2 Air is the shiniest laptop on the planet right now.
Right.
It's shut.
Yeah, but you know what? If you are going to go in that direction, I would strongly recommend looking at a 14-inch MacBook Pro.
I don't disagree, but I'm not going in that direction.
Yeah,
but it's fun to admire from afar.
He's not tempted, so don't bother.
Yeah.
No.
I do think the new MacBook Pros may come out this month. There's some.
Oh, okay.
And believe me, there are days where it's like, this is it. I'm going MacBook. I want a Vision Pro and an iPad and the latest iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm going all the way.
Come over to the dark side, Richard.
Yeah,
sure.
It's okay.
If I'm going in that walled garden, I'm going way in that walled garden.
The sheep will welcome you. We will welcome you.
Right.
You're loved, Richard. You are loved.
Oh boy!
I'm happy hating out here.
I'm bathing in the warm waters of the Apple ecosystem, and it's nice, Richard.
Would you call it the Appalachian Lake?
I don't even think anymore.
Yeah, that would be nice. Honestly, not having half a brain in your head and being worried about the issues that Richard is worried about would actually be very soothing.
You guys stress out so much over all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about Intel. I'm not Intel.
Hey, I don't even own an Exchange server anymore. I am way more
good,
relaxed.
man. You're moving in the right direction. That's
I e-wasted the last of the domain controllers. Like, they're gone. They don't live in my life anymore. I live in Synology and E360.
I am, on the other hand, getting the third update to iOS 17 today.
I know,
on my phone because it overheated, and they don't. Well, we can fix that, and blah blah blah.
Yep.
So.
Oh, you were holding it wrong.
Yeah, meaning you were holding it in your hand while turned on.
But at least they updated. I mean, it's not like they're just sitting there.
They did update it. And by the way, unlike this Google update today, which I have not gotten on 3 phones, that Apple thing came right through. There's something to be said about we announced an update. It's available. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I forgot, by the way, I skipped over Bing Image Creator. For all whatever you perceive of my attitude about Bing, I think it's important that everyone take a look at this. The dall-e 3 upgrade for Bing Image Creator is pretty impressive. Bing.com/create, I think is the UI, but you'll see a link to it. And it went from, cartoon to Pixar near photographic quality graphics. It's pretty good. It's actually
That's one
pretty good.
area.
dall-e name that makes you jump, not the Bing name.
That's one area. There are a few, but that's one area where AI seems to have found a nice niche to create graphics. I mean,
By the way, related to that productivity thing, right? We're not all artists,
Right.
and or even those who are. Like, I don't have all day. I just want a picture of a woman in a bikini holding a flag on the moon. Can I just have that? Why do I need to make it? I'm not doing a
Why
photo
am I
shoot
in
here.
paint? What's happening here?
Yeah, that's right. Right. By the way, I said woman in a bikini because I asked it for a hero standing on the surface of the moon holding a Microsoft flag, and it came out with an astronaut and a woman in a bikini, and I was like, it's still doing this, huh? It's still doing this.
well, but maybe it knew better than you what to do.
That's true.
Maybe
Of
that's
course,
what
it's AI.
it called for. Yeah.
I know.
I've got an astronaut and a
Should be
woman in a
open to that.
bikini. Finally.
Those are the heroes in my life. Astronaut, not a woman in a bikini driving a train or something. Right? Anyway,
I have to say, the image you did create for your article looks just like our little doggy here. Bert.
I didn't create that. That was a Microsoft example.
Oh, it's it's just
Yeah,
like,
it is.
looks just like Lily.
I think it's a very nice picture.
Very nice picture.
Yep.
So, it's just like every other picture. I never can get the pictures to look as good as the ones the company says you're going to get. I don't know.
Right.
The other thing is, so Bing Image Creator, at least to my knowledge, at least I could find, doesn't do, when you go to dall-e directly at OpenAI, you can, I forget what they call it, but you can kind of expand the image out in different directions. It's kind of like an edit function. And, you know what I mean? Like make it
Yeah,
widescreen
they
or
call it
something.
out painting. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't believe that Bing Image Creator does that. So it creates these square images, and I cropped this one. Yeah, but the images I created are all cropped, and sorry, not cropped, are all square. And I didn't see a way to, because I created some images that I thought would be kind of cool for an article. That's why I was doing this, and but I couldn't get them to be widescreen. So.
You can't just say, try saying, I know you can't with Midjourney, you can say,
Oh, maybe you can.
16:9, and it'll give you
maybe I
16
could,
by 9. So try it in the prompt. I think in the prompt you can.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe
You can tell it what you want.
That could be. Yep.
Prompt pre-processor is my new idea. I'm excited about it.
Prompt pre.
Let the prompt write the prompt for you to use
That's
the
it.
prompt.
Yeah. Well, look at these images.
When
They're
you
all
go
square,
to
right?
request
Look at
an
the
image,
article.
it's saying, did you want it in a 16 by 9?
Yeah.
Let me
I
add that
don't
to the
understand
prompt.
why there aren't options like that. Like, it seems
There
to me you
might be. I mean, look and see. I'm not a big image creator.
I didn't find them. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily the most sophisticated guy in the world, but I didn't see it.
Stable Diffusion does it. Midjourney
Yeah.
does it.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if.
But come
Bing-
on, you tie this to a brand as well loved and known as Bing. I mean, it's just kind of it's just a
It's square, man.
Lifts it up.
Bing is
Hashtag winning.
square, man.
it's square. Nice.
Maybe it's because they know you're going to put it on Instagram.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007.
Yeah.
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 Maybe.
Why don't they? So there's no like help. Like here's some suggestions or
I don't know. Man. I just,
image creators.
I'm like a lot of people. I try something, it doesn't work, and I give up. It's
Yeah.
just,
And you're using it in Bing, not standalone.
I did do it in Bing. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. What does that mean? That means it is
Prompting it
time
wrong. Beautiful.
for the
Prompting it
fine.
wrong.
You're
That's-
prompting it wrong.
That's going to be a title someday for you, somewhere in some show. That's a
You
perfect.
can use
title.
it in this one. This is a good show title. I like it.
Good one.
You're prompting it wrong. What about Xbox? Let me prompt you right.
Yeah, only a couple things here. We're all in this holding. It's October, by the way, and that means the CMA is going to come back with mea culpa. We'll see. But in the meantime, it is a new month, so we've got a small amount of new games coming to Game Pass. The big one is there's a new Forza Motorsport coming, which is interesting on a number of levels. It's one of the more popular Microsoft/Xbox kind of franchise games. It's only going to be available on the latest generation consoles.
So
Through
X
Game
and
Pass.
S?
Through Game Pass. Sorry, through Game Pass. So it won't be on Xbox One, apparently.
So X and S.
Yeah, so that's happening, and then we just have some sort of industry news. So Sony PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan, the Dark Prince of the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, is retiring. I assume he was beaten down by the terribleness that was that event. But honestly, this guy might be one of the biggest success stories in the history of the industry, at least from like a CEO perspective. I mean, PlayStation under his reign, I guess, has thrived and has beaten Microsoft horribly in the last 2 generations, current and previous. I mean, incredible. PlayStation 5, 40 million units in 3 years, right? In a time in which 2/3 of that time there were serious component supply problems, pandemic.
Although I would argue that's an advantage for Sony because they are fairly vertically integrated.
That could be. Well, it certainly was. They worked out. So they seem to suffer less from it. And then they came out much earlier. Microsoft, I don't think has still even admitted this because I don't think anyone would notice. But Sony, I think it was last year, said, we're over it. We're done. This holiday is going to be great. And next year is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, as many as you want, we got them.
Yep, 40 million.
Wow.
It's really a question of how many people want. I mean, he's only been CEO for 5 years. Like, it's not like he's been at Sony a long time.
Yes,
but,
that's right. That's true. So.
He's going to spend.
It's interesting to think why leave now, but
to spend more time with his money. I think that's fair.
He can't face a world in which Call of Duty goes to Xbox Game Pass. He just doesn't want to be part of that.
Take it. Can't take it.
Can't do it.
Who knows how much flack he's taken from the board, what he promised around those deals. That maybe it's just to walk away now.
I meant to ask you in the Chromebook section, with Google promoting gaming Chromebooks. Obviously, you're not playing the game locally. You're playing on a streaming service. Google killed Stadia. This has got to be a benefit for Xbox Game Pass, right? I mean, I guess it could be NVIDIA GeForce Now.
Gaming class Chromebooks often do have some kind of GPU, so I wonder if there isn't
they're local.
A local.
You think? Oh.
Well, no, I don't. I'm not saying they're local. I think they are too. But I think, but you need to have some kind of local. You can't be like a bare bones device to have a really good experience.
But they're pushing this as a gaming machine, which means since they killed Stadia, they're effectively pushing Microsoft or GeForce Now or some other.
Yeah.
They don't have a
Minecraft came to Chromebooks this year.
Yeah, it's on Java, of course. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's
you're not going to see Call of Duty on a Chromebook.
Well, it's always Farmville.
I honestly, when they're saying gaming Chromebook, I don't think they're saying, hey,
I would like to see a Call of Duty Minecraft crossover where it's Call of Duty but with Minecraft graphics. They could redo all the maps and those blocky graphics would be fun.
And shoot little creeps and mobs.
Yep, shoot little blocks out of your gun and blow them up.
Here come the
pigmen.
they fall
apart like
good
and block graffiti or confetti.
Maybe that's the plan.
Yeah. I don't know. I always thought the notion of a gaming Chromebook was like an oxymoron.
I just think this is a perfect example of how disjointed Google's strategies are. They kill Stadia and within a few months announce gaming Chromebooks.
Right. And also, no one remembers or even knows about this, but Google Play games on Windows, which is takes Android games down to Windows using an emulator. So those are locally installed. Listen, it's possible if you get into the premium PC space with a Chromebook. None of the
they call them cloud gaming machines, so it is definitely streaming.
Yep, but you could put a GPU in a Chromebook, and it is Linux, and maybe right. I mean, now that you have a minimum of 128 gigabytes.
It's GeForce Now. Yeah. It's GeForce Now. GeForce Now. It isn't. Yeah. Well, now there's Microsoft and there's Amazon's Luna.
Yep.
So they don't.
Well, you gotta give them an out.
It's hysterical. I mean, they must have planned this when Stadia was a product, and they thought, this will be great for Stadia.
Because Stadia and Chromebook had that kind of natural symbiosis. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Somebody tells me there is a game called BattleBit, which is what I just described, sort of. Well, I'll have to look that up.
Cyberpunk's in the list. That's a pretty processor-intensive game.
Yeah, but you're not playing these native. These are all streaming. Absolutely.
They're all streaming.
But what they have is a high-res, high refresh rate display. They have better. One of the big problems with Chromebooks,
because you're going to need Ethernet.
Yeah, because
that's going to be the big thing.
One of the big problems with Chromebook also is bad trackpads. I'm sure they've upgraded those. It does say best-in-class graphics.
The HP that I have from March is incredible. It is a premium Windows PC running Chrome OS. Like it's a gorgeous, beautiful machine. Great keyboard, great trackpad. 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports.
Yeah, these
Beautiful.
have i3s and i5s.
Yep.
Huh.
GeForce.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. That's not for me. So, and I say that having tried cloud gaming. So it's like I'm going to pay money for a device that can only do that. It doesn't sound.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Maybe someday, but that's always been the Chromebook story. Maybe someday the Chromebook biography.
An Ethernet connection is required for best results, so these must have Ethernet. It says in their
probably
FAQ.
via USB-C, right? Right. They can. Do that.
Yeah, you could do that. Let me look at the one of these, the Acer
Wi-Fi 6 will
Chromebook.
save us all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Once we get to USB 5, everything's going to be fine. Okay.
Fine.
So, I'm sorry. What? No. And then I just finally, Epic is going to be laying off people.
Yeah.
I like the way that
we told you, Apple, that you would kill us, and now you have. How can this company that made more money than God on Fortnite be laying people off now?
Yeah. Well, because like everyone else, because big tech during the pandemic hired too much.
Yeah.
And, this is universal. I don't know that there's an example of a big tech company that didn't fall for this, which makes me really sad. I complained about this at the time.
Yeah.
And Epic, to be fair to Epic, I mean, compared to Apple, they're smaller than the corner store down the street, right? I mean, they are a big company compared to my company, but they're tiny. I mean, compared to Apple. Someone on Twitter or Mastodon kind of said something like, "Well, it looks like they shouldn't have taken on Apple. Oh, that was stupid." And it's like, guys, come on. Like, I mean, at least give them credit for doing we can disagree, agree, whatever, but like taking on big tech, at least getting this thing argued in court, whatever.
Oh, they're still taking on Apple. They went to the Supreme Court. They've appealed it to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
As has Apple, ironically.
That's good because those guys are really into Fortnite, and I think their take on this will be interesting.
Can't wait to hear what Antonin Scalia thinks of. Oh, wait a minute, he's gone. But still,
Dead. Yeah.
They might as well be there. Who cares? They don't know.
How can you tell the difference? Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Bunch of old people in robes. It's
I'm pretty sure Kavanaugh plays Fortnite.
Yeah, he looks like he has a nice beard, goes home, he
looks like a teabagger, am I right?
Yeah.
Classic
Kavanaugh. Oh, Brett, he's at it again. All right, is that it for the? Do you have anything more for Xbox? Anything more?
No, that's it.
That's
the whole thing. I'm hoping to have good news the next week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Big news.
Big news. It's a big news, Brzezinski.
The biggest.
But first, I want to tell everybody why it's so important they join Club Twit. We are having a big event tomorrow. I know a lot of you are sci-fi fans. You are definitely going to want to join the club for this one. John Scalzi in conversation with Aunt Pruitt. Big event tomorrow. So here's the idea with the club. Originally we thought, if you give us $7, that's all it is, $7 a month, two grande lattes a month, we will give you ad-free versions of the shows because you're kind of taking over that responsibility. And now that ads sales are really dwindling on podcasts in general, it's not just us. NPR laid off a bunch of people. It's just terrible across the board. The club's more and more important to us. But then we thought, that's a lot of money. Maybe we can make it even more valuable. So we created the Club Twit Discord, which is a wonderful place to hang, to chat, to be with the other Club Twit members and geek out. And then once we had the Discord, we thought, well, let's do some events in the Discord. So tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, John Scalzi. That kind of ties into the fact that Stacy's book club is going to feature one of Scalzi's novels, The Kaiju Preservation Society. That's coming up next month. We've got Home Theater Geeks, the Untitled Linux Show, AI Inside, our new AI show with Jason and Jeff. They're prototyping it in the club. That's another thing the club can let us do is launch new stuff. This month, coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to do an escape room. All the Twit hosts will gather together, and we will try to do an escape room you can watch and laugh and mock. Renee Ritchie's coming up, Old Farts Chat with Jeff Jarvis, Doc Searles, and me. Those are some of the events. Then there's also the shows we do, like Paul's show, Hands on Windows. It's club only. Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent, if you want to go to the dark side. Club only. Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks, the Untitled Linux Show, the Untitled AI Show. These are all unique club shows because there's no advertisers for them. The club pays for them. So you get them. You get first access. There's also a Twit Plus feed with stuff that happens before and after shows and just extra stuff that didn't fit in the show. The national alarm going off, things like that. Now that I think is, now we're talking $7, you're getting a lot for your money. If you're not a member, and I know we have 8,000 members now, but I would love to see it get up to, that's just a little more than 1% of our audience. Let's get 2, 3, 4, 5% of our audience. That's frankly what it's going to take to keep Twit going at the speed that we're going. Otherwise, we're going to have to slow down, I'm sorry to say. So please help us out. I don't want to beg, but please. Twit.tv/club Twit. We'd love to have you as a member, and I think you will love the club. You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott on your left. He's in the U.S., in Australia. Richard Campbell. And it's time for Paul's tip of the week, which he has tried all show not to give away. All show.
I screwed it up. Who cares? It's over. Yeah, I mean, in keeping with what we were talking about earlier, it's kind of how it's weird how all these things have kind of, I don't know, segued into each other. This year has just been kind of horrible on a number of levels. And in our industry with regards to subscriptions, products, services, how these things are serving their masters, that's the certification stuff, how things are more expensive. And it's just causing a lot of rethinking. I see it every day on my site. People are, killing services, doing the thing I talked about, but I've never done, which is like, I'm going to do Netflix this month and Hulu next month, and I'm not paying for all this stuff. And I actually brought this up with my wife for a couple of reasons, but one of her ideas was that, pushback might institute change, which is when I told her the thing I was talking to Richard about earlier, which was actually Microsoft's pretty good about that. So, maybe some kind of forum for complaining or whatever, some publicizing of the problem, something. And I'm starting to think of this as the biggest issue of our day, which is sort of what I alluded to earlier. And, I know a lot of people, if you look at what I do for a living, probably think of me as the Microsoft guy, Windows guy, or whatever. But honestly, I'm really more about kind of productivity or efficiency or whatever. I discuss and think about and write about and work on things like workflow and which products and services work the best for what it is I'm trying to do. And I'm always experimenting with different things and whatever. But I'm starting to wonder if this isn't in some ways more important, and that the time to take a stand against these things that are getting worse is not now, And I don't know what the tip is exactly, other than to join me as we kind of take on these topics. I don't know how they'll. I don't know.
Think more about productivity, about what you do with the computer than the technology.
Not just computers. This is everything. Honestly, it's about ecosystems, right? Yeah. And so, for example, you can, and I think have made a good case for. The numbing embrace of the Apple ecosystem. And there are great reasons for that, right? No, there really are.
I was being facetious, but okay.
No, I know, but one does, and there are good reasons for it. There are reasons not to do that. There is, by the way, a grass is always greener effect. Richard was half jokingly saying, like, he wakes up one day with a Mac and an iPad Pro and a whatever. And, what if he did, what he would discover is, some things are better. Some things are the same and some things are worse, right? And but the point is to kind of evaluate this stuff. And the weird thing is, I kind of looked at my site because I know I write about this from time to time. It's been a little while, but I think the whole ecosystem debate, that conversation we had earlier about big company that does a bunch of things versus small company that does one thing, is all kind of plays into this. What's important. I don't think going back to vinyl is the answer, right? I think that's a little bit of a hipster affectation, but
there are hundreds of thousands of hipsters who disagree with you.
Okay, but there are hundreds of millions and billions of people who don't. So I you're right. And Richard and Leo and I all have NASAs. This is kind of an old white guy thing to do, maybe, but maybe we're getting
it's not just white people that use NASAs.
Okay,
but okay.
I can only speak to my own little subset.
But as an old white guy, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. As an old white guy who is very confident in everything he says and knows nothing about anything, I will tell you that no. So
I've got a NAS story for you, because you're exactly right. We all have Synologies and QNAPs and all those variations, but there is a teacher in our circle of friends who is not a technical person. She's a proper teacher,
right? And
occasionally asks us for technical help. And she had run out to buy a USB drive to do some backups on some things, and was talking through all the things she needed to do. And I'm like,
why are you getting a drive?
You need a NAS. I know. Yeah. You know how scary that is.
It's
to people,
so scary to people.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not like you're not technically competent. I think as soon as you saw the console of this, you know what to do.
I am so torn, and I know you guys will understand that. I don't know if the audience will, but I am so torn. I'm almost at the verge of saying I give up. I
yes. Oh, all right.
Quit.
This was the thing I wanted to say earlier that I held back on. If you watch any action movie, now granted, most action movies like John Wick, whatever it is, the lead character is almost always a man. But the interesting thing is, this is true when there's a woman as the main character too.
Salt,
universally, almost 100% universally. These people do not use technology.
No,
they drive a 70s muscle car.
First thing they do, they take your cell phone and they throw it. They break it in half. Take out the battery, throw it out the window.
No,
they know
I'm not suggesting they're onto something, but there is an interesting thing, and I've said this to my wife because
it's the bad guys at headquarters are using all this technology, and the individual with his bare fists and brains.
And I don't mean all movies, right? We all know a MacBook saved, or PowerBook, it saved the world in Independence Day. What I'm talking about very specifically.
That was a long time ago.
I know. I'm talking about action movies, right? The almost near universal constant is that this guy usually, but a woman also, is anti-technology, and it is because of a life of experience, right? Like
we also like the individual. They triumphs over, like John Henry beating the steam engine. You know, I mean, we like that.
So to me, that's interesting. I don't mean to say it means anything, but I think if you think about it, think through your little movie collection you have on your NAS, you nerd. You probably know what I'm talking about, right? So anyway, I think that there are multiple discussions to be had on multiple fronts. You could talk about anything. Storage from an external hard drive. An external hard drive, if they have such things, that has two drives inside and there's a redundancy to it. A NAS, whatever, two NASs in two different locations that you're syncing over the, whatever. There's a whole spectrum of things just on that one topic. The way that we consume content, whether it's reading or movies and TV shows or music or podcasts or audiobooks, I think we've pushed so far in this one direction. I think there's going to be a pushback, and I think we need to think about this. And I think there's no answer, right? There's different answers for different people, and we'll all come to different conclusions, right? But I think this is a time to rethink ecosystems, is I guess maybe the word I'll use. I'm not sure the right word for this. Ecosystems, right? Where you decide, where you plant your flag, right? Whether it's productivity or entertainment or whatever. It is shocking and disappointing to look at your however you pay for things, your credit card statement, whatever, and realize how many things you're paying for every month, maybe, or that are redundant.
Even
cases,
more than that, it was supposed to get easier. Technology was supposed to get out of the way, and it has done the opposite.
Actually, here's one, Leo, that you'll find interesting because and relevant to you. I think, look, I create content. We all create content, right? This is one thing. So, surprisingly, I see the value in content, and I see the value in paying for good content. I try to support content sources that I think are high quality. Yeah. There's a podcast that I listen to that I really like, and for the most part. And the problem is there's not enough of it, and I'm running out of stuff to listen to, and I wish there was a thing. And they have a Patreon. And so they have little excerpts from like these Patreon episodes. So I was at the gym, and between sets, I literally went because I ran out of stuff to listen to. I was like, all right, how does this work? And the thing I wanted to figure out was, if I pay them, can I use the app I use to listen to that content? Right. I think it's $4 a month or something for this particular thing. And I couldn't figure it out. I think I have to go to the Patreon website, frankly. However, and this is the part Leo would be very familiar with, Apple, maybe not alone, but somewhat unique among podcast platform providers, has subscriptions in their podcast app that you can do on a per subscription basis. So the podcast, if I pay them directly, it's $4 a month. If I pay through Apple, it's only through the Apple Podcast app, which I don't want to use because I prefer cross platform. And it's more expensive, right? Because it's Apple, because they're accounting for that.
It's their 30%.
Yep. Yeah. So it's $5, right? That's the cost. And is like, that is a great example of something that should just be easier, right? It shouldn't matter what app I use. I should be able to sign into the account through the app and get that premium content
through any podcast app. And I don't think I can. I could be wrong, but I don't think I can.
I've always said the podcasts are not going to take off till it's as easy to listen to the podcast as punching a button on the old, remember the old car radios? You'd punch a button and there's your...
Or even like, Sirius Radio is an interesting example because you get a new car and they're like, here's 6 months for free.
Yeah.
And they make it hard to they make it hard to kill it.
They make it really hard to cancel. I'm still getting bills.
They do, which by the way, might soon not be something you can do anymore. But they make it hard to cancel it. And then when you actually get on the phone with them, they offer you a lower price and you do it again.
Right.
Right. Which is how everyone does it.
I get you.
Which is kind of interesting. But podcasts are just a tiny little corner of the story. But I all of these things, right? I think this is all, I don't know. I think there's a whole fertile field of, it's like de-insurtification, right? How do we fix this problem, which we all acknowledge exists? But we have to apply it to a million little things because there are a million little things.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about it.
There's a couple of Patreon podcasts that I've been involved in. And in the end, it's an RSS feed. So once you know the
so you
feed,
can subscribe to that. Oh, okay. Okay. I did this on my phone. So like all middle-aged white guys, I can't do anything on a phone. I'm ridiculous. So I'll have to do it on a real screen, like on a computer, because that's how I view the world. So I'll look at that. I would like to pay. I would like to pay these guys. I'd like to pay. I'd like to pay Netflix Patreon less than pay them more. I get much more enjoyment out of them.
Do you have other subscriptions on Patreon?
Not anymore. No, I did. This is something I've done intermittently.
I spend about $250 a month on Patreon.
Really?
For
that's
a bunch
incredible.
of creators that I like.
Okay,
good for you.
For exactly
good
that
for
reason.
You. Yeah.
The money goes
Support
to them.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay. You know what? I'm not surprised to hear that, honestly, because like I've sent a lot of money at like the guys who used to do MST3K, right? They do riff tracks.
Right.
I've spent thousands of dollars on them, but I love those guys and I enjoy that content. And I mean, I think it's important to spend money in the right place, but that's part of this discussion, right? Where you've got X amount of dollars you can spend or want to spend or whatever. Mm-hmm. Where are you putting that money, right? Someone asked me today about subscribing to Hands on Windows probably on Apple, I guess.
You can do that.
It's $2.99. Or just through you, I guess, because you can just do the one pod, right?
Yep.
And I told them, because they wanted to subscribe to Premium too, and it is kind of interesting. These two subscriptions are completely separate, right? That was something we should probably talk about. But I said to this person, you really need to look at the full Club Twit thing, right? Because I think you would get more. I know you would get way more value out of that.
A few bucks more, yeah. $3 more.
And to me, that's just 100% worth it. So yeah.
Well,
this is something this is going to come up again and again.
I don't know what the answer is. I really don't.
No, that's the problem. And it's going to, hopefully through regulation and customer pushback, some of this stuff will revert or get better, right? The problem is
or I'm going to move to the jungle and live on coconuts. It's that or it's one or the other.
It's fine as long as you're driving a 67 Mustang and
throw that cell phone out the window.
Yep. No,
the battery out.
There's some kicking of ass involved.
Honestly, that is part of our national psyche. I swear to God, going back to John Henry beating the steam engine, we always want to celebrate the human over the machine. And we still feel that way. There's still a Luddite.
This is every Michael Crichton book ever written was that exact topic.
Yeah.
If you want,
just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it, right?
Right. Which literal line from Jurassic Park, not invented for that movie, but just ham-headed Steven Spielberg, whatever. So yes, okay. So I don't know what that means as a tip, but I wanted to get that out there. I want people to think about this, and I'm going to be writing a lot about that. This is like this might. I don't mean to say it's more important than productivity, but I feel like, I don't know.
I think what's really going on is kind of natural, which is, I thought this would happen a long time ago. The analogy I always use is stereo music. In the 50s, you really focused on the stereo gear, right? And the RMS and the watts per channel, blah, 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 and distortion. And then it became about the content. And we stopped paying any attention. We no longer, unless you're the most hardcore, nerdy music fan, you don't really care about your playback capability and your headphones or your speakers. You just get something and it works. And what happens is we focus on Kate
was
Bush.
Probably the start of this, right?
Yeah, we focus on Kate Bush, not on THD.
Yeah.
And that's a normal thing. And I thought that would happen with technology, that the technology would take a backseat to productivity, to what you do with it. But the companies have made this thing so complicated that in order to be productive, you somehow have to be this guru, and no one can do it.
I have a lot of Sonos equipment, and it is what it is, right? I happen to like it. I don't like the app, but I like the whatever whole house audio one. So we're in Mexico, and everything's more expensive there, and I don't want to buy. I just can't. I'm just not going to buy that stuff. It's too expensive. So we bought on sale these really nice big Bluetooth speakers. You can stereo pair them and everything. And they sound great. And, we got the thing set up and we're playing music. And I'm like, this is so much better or as good. And it's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
And then an alert came through on my phone and the song paused and it went like through the speakers. Like, oh, yeah.
Never mind.
Oh, right.
That's what it is. Sometimes having a separate system is good, So there's pros and cons.
When we went away last week to Green Bay, we had a house sitter, young guy, high school kid. And Lisa said, you need to make a manual for him so that he can watch TV in the living room. And I had to take pictures of all the remotes, label them. I had a 5-step. We've had to do this
on home swap, same thing.
So you do this. If that doesn't work, then do this. But if it doesn't do that, then do that. And then, it was insane. I doubt he was able to watch TV. It was so freaking complicated. And Lisa says, you can't ever die because I won't be able to figure this out.
Well, you got to, we live in a world where TVs boot up.
They're all computers.
Everything's gotten
and
stupid.
they're all fighting with each other. By the way,
I don't want a computer. I want a screen.
Dumb.
I just want to hit right?
We need to go back to dumb.
Dumb is the simple. Not dumb.
House.
Simple.
You sold your smart house. There you go.
Yeah. And one of the things I did was move all of the accounts that the house depends on into an Outlook.com account so that the new owner could have it.
Love it.
Oh, you had to do that. You had to do that.
And then you handed them the account, which here's the account.
Right.
Make sure you change the password, right? That's beautiful.
Change the password on this.
We can never sell our house because I can't do that.
Sure.
It's I'm thinking, well, I put in all this Ubiquity stuff and Ethernet in the walls. I think I can't take that
you're
with
like
me.
A high-tech version of a hoarder.
I know.
You're dooming the next
And we have a 20-year lease on our solar panels, and it says in the lease, if you sell the house, you have to make sure the new buyers will take over the lease. We can't sell the house. It's too complicated.
That's amazing.
We're stuck.
Well, I did write the manual, and I've ended up having to help the new owners directly. They're lovely people, and they're very, part of what they wanted from the house was that automation.
Yeah, sure. That was a selling point.
Ask the house to turn on the TV, and it does all the switching.
We also gave the owners of our house something from the house, which was a grandfather clock, because we didn't want to carry it.
But you didn't have to write a manual on how to wind it up.
Well, actually, you probably do, but I didn't. So,
they'll figure it out.
Honestly, it's a little complicated.
They'll figure it out.
That's someone else.
Do you have an app of the week?
I do.
What else can we crap our lives up with?
Yeah, exactly. So as part of my gigantic decluttering crusade there, I did a bunch of scanning and blah, 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 whatever. I somehow managed not to write about this, despite the fact that I wrote like 18 articles about this. And that is that at some point in the past, using a flatbed scanner, I scanned multiple photos all on one page together, right? So you have dozens and dozens of files that are multiple photos.
This is clever.
Yep. So you have to separate them, right? Now you could do it manually, which is awful if you don't value your time or your life at all. You could do that. Or you could try to find an app that does it. And like Photoshop, for example, has this function built in. It's terrible. I have scanner apps that have this function built in. Terrible. But I found this thing that was so good that I paid for it. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like
it looks terrible.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I think I paid
a little old school of a website there.
We had a call on the radio show where I asked the tech guys about this, and I didn't know about this scan speed.
I found. Listen, this was on page 3 of a Google search. That's speaking of search.
Yeah.
And I finally came across. I tried so many different things, and through the process, I have on some computers a half a dozen music utilities, a half a dozen photo utilities, a half a dozen whatever. I've tried everything on God's earth to solve different problems. This one solved some problems.
This is nice. Incredible.
It works very well. And if you say you have an image with 5 pictures on it, sometimes it will get 4 correctly. Sometimes you have to do a little edge correction. But you can also draw new edges and add them. The thing that's really cool about it, the thing that really put this over the top, other than the obvious, is you can kind of eyeball it, and it will do the crop pretty much correctly. Not every single time, but almost every time. So if you have like a little bit of white space on one side, it will actually, kind of do that for you. It works great. It looks dumb, frankly. This is one of, I think there was I can't remember the other app, but there were a couple of apps. Oh, I bought a store app, which is crazy, which was very good as well. It has the dumbest UI because it was made for Windows 8. But this app and that app, they both look so old school. They look like the type of thing I would never use. And it's just fantastic. So if you need this, and I think people do, right? If you have a flatbed scanner and that's how you're doing it, obviously you can have multiple photos on a page or whatever. This does it. It's nice. There you go.
Thank you.
Awesome.
This is a great catch.
It's a find. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now
I'm
we
so
go
happy to find this.
to Richard Campbell and a check-in on Run as Radio this week.
Well, I've been pretty persistent, and so here we are at episode 900 of Run As Radio.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun,
Thanks very
dun.
much.
We're catching up with you, though. But you'll always
There you
be a
go.
little bit ahead.
I'm not sure. It's like my son is catching up to me in age.
Yeah, not really, is it? Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, normally I only put out an episode a week only. But once in a while, you have specials, or there's a pandemic and now you need 2 a week. Like there were things that have happened. But what I have been, these odd shows are kind of a challenge too. It's like, what do you do when you've had your 9th odd show? So I have gotten in the routine of sort of reflecting back on the last 100 shows. And so I dragged my friend Dana Epp in to bounce against some of this stuff and just like, well, what were we thinking back at 800 and so on? And roughly the last 2 years.
Nice.
And of course, that was 800 was mid-pandemic. So just, and it's funny that we were already talking about, hey, we're really blowing up the security perimeter right now because everybody's got to work from home. How are we going to clean that mess up? Which I think is half of what I've talked about this year.
Yeah.
Is the challenges around all of that. So yeah, it's fun to have a little bit of an indulgence, just sort of be reflective. But yeah, there we are. I'll do another odd show in roughly 2 years.
Nice.
900 double show. Very nice. Very nice, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Do you miss anything from, the old days, on-prem servers rather,
Exchange.
Windows servers?
I mean, I really am a screwdriver spinner. So, and I had racks in my house up until like 2 months ago when I sold that house. But I got to tell you how gleeful it was to shut that stuff down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you kidding? Yeah.
I know.
And now I'm annoyed that my Synology is as noisy as it is. Like I'm going to have to.
I was because my office thing is in this room with the living room and all this. We were watching TV the other night, and I was like, "Is it raining?" I was like, "What are you talking about? It's beautiful." And I said, "I hear rain," and it was my Nest just gurgling behind me, and I was like, "That's kind of nice."
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm glad you could.
That's your white. That's your white noise generator.
Yeah.
It wasn't too loud.
I want a brown liquor to wrap this up.
Well, I have one for you, and of course, I'm in Perth, right? So I'm like, I've drank a few Australian whiskeys along the way, but I'm looking, are there any Perthian whiskeys? And it turns out there is. There's Upshot.
Perthian?
Yeah. Perthian, you like that word? That's a good one.
They call it a corn liquor, though. I mean,
because
Dragon
it is.
Riders of Perth. Is that?
No, that's a different.
No, that's Anne McCaffrey.
Right. Sorry.
So the distillery is called the Whippersnapper Distillery. Why? Because it's run by a couple of younger men who, when they said they were going into whiskey, were told, "What do you two young whippersnappers know about anything?" Started back in 2014. Jim McEwen and his brother-in-law, Alistair Mallock, started it up. They had been enamored of whiskey for many years. In fact, Alistair's story is that he had a neighbor named Vic who was a World War II vet. He was a Lancaster pilot. And having survived the war, and if you'll notice the image on there all over the place is a Lancaster with a pair of barrels strapped underneath it.
Oh, yeah.
So Alistair helped Vic writing his memoirs, and Vic on the side was distilling in his backyard, as you do. Nobody bothers a World War II vet, and so that sort of got him drawn into whiskey. Doubly so when he wanted to reconnect with a friend from the U.S. Air Force. They ended up in Colorado, and looking for the friend, and in the process ran into a guy named Tommy Cooper who made Colorado Gold whiskey, which is an award-winning whiskey out of Colorado. and ended up mentoring the two of them to actually get a whiskey business up and running. And so, 2014, they sort of established this here right in the city, like 15 minutes walk from where I am is their distillery.
I assume these prices are Australian dollars.
I've converted it to US dollars. It's 100 Australian. Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at their site. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So so that's Aussie dollars, and unfortunately only available in Australia.
Yeah. Damn.
So very much what makes this whiskey their whiskey? It's all Western Australian ingredients except for the barrels. So the mash bill is 80% corn. I mean, that's more than American bourbon. 10% wheat, 10% malted barley. And the malted part is important because they need that amylase, right? This is a lot of corn that can produce a lot of methanol, which is not good for your customers. But the entire facility is in Perth. They grind their own grain. They actually cook the grains together, so they're not doing separate grain cook-offs. They blend it together so it comes a kind of a porridge that's quite sweet. And they cool it down, add yeast to it, becomes an 8% distiller's beer, and then they start the distillation. And if you see the picture of the still, you're going to go, that's a weird looking still. And that's because it is an Arnold Holstein still, which is the same kind of still that Coop used up in Colorado. I've mentioned this a few times on other shows about the whole what's really broke in the distillery business open is the Germans. This is one of those Germans. Arnold Holstein makes a line of adjustable stills. They are combined reflex column stills. So again, if you see the pictures there, you'll see there's sort of a pot still looking thing, which is really just the cooker. It has a stirrer and a heater in it, and then it feeds into a series of column plates. There's lots of eyeglasses that represent the different plate locations with some coolers. So the way that Upshot is made is that after they've made their brewers beer, the 8% beer, and they load it into the still, it's heated electrically, and the initial stage feeds into a secondary stage with a 13-plate column still, and that raises the alcohol level. And then the third stage has some additional plates, and then the condensers. And so in their initial run, they'll take that 8% up to about 65%. That's called a stripping run, where you're basically getting the extras out. You're kind of getting to the alcohol product. And then they'll clean the rig. They'll actually do several batches like that, taking off the head and the tails and just keeping the hearts. And then they'll take those batches and run them through the still again for what's called a rectifying run, where they'll land at about 90%, which is almost vodka territory. Like you're taking a lot of the grain flavors out to go that high. But they'll cut it with water. They actually sell the moonshine at that point if you would like to buy the moonshine. But in the particular case with Upshot, they have been buying American oak barrels, the same stuff as bourbon. They buy it out of Missouri, but they're virgin barrels. They've not been used for bourbon. And they have them charred heavily. So there's almost a charcoal on the inside. And they barrel it quite low. We're only talking in the 40s. Because Perth is warm compared to Scotland, well, pretty much everywhere is warm compared to Scotland. It's more of what they call the Mediterranean climate. So they have cool winters, but they have quite hot summers. And so their angel share runs in the 5% range annually. But it also means that the whiskey ages quickly. So Upshot is only 2 years in the barrel. But remember that all of this color comes from the barrel. So, and I have the whiskey. I've been drinking it every time Paul dropped out, which was a lot for a while there.
You're
but
speaking pretty eloquently.
That's a lot of color, So, I mean, the upside to this American approach is that charred barrel has a lot of sugars in it, and they've gone into the whiskey. So for 2 years in the barrel to get that much color, they use no chill filtration and no caramel dyes. Not that there's any restrictions on that in Australia. Australia really doesn't have rules for whiskey. So in a lot of ways, these guys are making an American bourbon. They're even using American barrels. But yeah, I got to take a taste. It's quite sweet. The first time you touch this, it's heady. There's a lot of nose to it. It smells like alcohol, even though it's down to the 40%. It's really not that potent a spirit per se. But yeah, this is a very approachable whiskey in the sense that, folks that don't like strong whiskeys are going to not mind it. They're going to enjoy that. It's also going to be brilliant in cocktails. It's got that sort of sweetness. There's no rye here. You've really got no spicy note coming at you. It's just sort of big and rich and round for a pretty straightforward whiskey. So well done to the whippersnappers. And
now bring it to the U.S., you bastards.
Yeah, they've got to push. Their production is a bit small right now, and they are just about to release a cask strength that's 63%.
This is good. Their Instagram has a lot of great images in there. So
look at that. Oh, by the way, the name of the still is Darth 2, and one of the control knobs is a Darth Vader helmet.
Nice.
But you look at that thing, that's a funny looking still. Like that is not.
Looks like a flute.
Like a musical instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I mean, not that different from what you find in smaller American bourbon distilleries. But Maker's Mark stills are much, much larger. And Mark goes column still for the initial distillation to around 60%, and then they do a pot still for the last 5 to 8%. They do tours. I haven't had a chance to take one. I tried to get one before we would do the show, but they were booked up. So things are busy over at the Whippersnapper.
You got an assignment, though. Get on over there if you can.
Yeah, I might just have to wander by for a while. And, and could look at that.
I assume they're closed now.
It is 4:30 in the morning. So
we better let
Australia,
you.
though.
5 a.m.
We better let you go, Richard. I am so grateful that you stayed up all night. Just to do
I did
show.
not stay up all night. I went to bed early. I had a good sleep. I got up to do this.
Okay. Thank you, Richard.
Now I've had a few whiskeys. I could probably snooze for a couple hours.
Richard Campbell, runasradio.com and .net rocks. He's in Perth. Are you going to be there next week? What's the plan?
I'm home. You're going to get my first shot from the new Coast rig.
Yeah.
Nice. Can't wait. Let's get some seashore in the background there.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get the ocean view.
Nice. Paul Thurrott, who knows where he'll be next week, but right now he's in Macungie, PA.
I'll be here, but after that I'll be in Mexico.
And you can find him on Thurrott.com, THURROTT.com. His book, The Field Guide to Windows 10, and his new one, Windows Everywhere. Both those books are available at leanpub.com. Set your own price, but get a great book. Paul, Richard, yay. Great show as always. We will see you next week. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be 1800. No, I'm sorry, 1800 UTC. It'll be 1900 in a couple of weeks. We go back to standard time the week after Halloween. But for right now, 1800 UTC. I tell you that so you can watch us live if you want at live.twit.tv. Club members get to chat with us live in the Club Twit Discord. If you're not a member, twit.tv/clubtwit to join the fun. There's always a great conversation there, even when there's not a show on the air. There's always great stuff to talk about. And after the fact, on-demand versions of the show available at twit.tv/dubdub or on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. Best thing to do would be subscribe in your favorite podcast player so you get it the minute it's available. Paul, Richard, dozers and winners alike, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt. And what do you get your favorite tech geek that has everything? A Club Twit gift subscription, of course. Twit podcasts keep them informed and entertained with the most relevant tech news podcasts available. With the Club Twit subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. They also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes, behind the scenes, and special content such as AMAs, which I just love hosting, plus exclusive shows such as Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. Purchase your geek's gift at twit.tv/clubtwit, and it will thank you every day.